black marker.
Hey, we're live. All right.
Hey, look at there.
To them. Somebody online, tell us if you can hear us as well as see us.
Need some paper.
Dean, we're getting a repeat on your end.
John, can you hand me a piece of paper, please?
Piece of paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
One of
that
these?
pad right next to it.
If I gotta say something, I'll write it.
Okay, sounds good.
But you're tethered.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Hey, good to hear us.
Do we normally have the big screen on back there so we can see the chat?
Yeah, we normally do.
We're not doing that tonight, or
Well,
I didn't know.
We're
Is
doing
it
that as
possible?
soon as Dawn figures it
Oh,
out.
okay.
She said she'd have that under control when I asked her about that. The controller, however, is farther over here.
Mark, can you grab that controller over here on the side of the screen?
Duck
you're-
when you go past the
You're
camera.
fine.
What am I getting?
That remote.
This one?
Yep.
That one right there.
See,
You're
now-
beautiful.
Now they see the top of your head, they know you're here.
They know you're here.
I don't care. Nobody has to know.
Anyone's got questions? Feel free to bring in questions to the chat while we're babbling here beforehand.
We're having fun.
Whew.
There's already 50 people watching, waiting, something.
I got a great idea for everybody, however, while we're sitting here waiting.
They're tuned in for the free giveaways.
That's a good thing, too.
I would be.
They just sit here for the free giveaway. That's all they want. I don't blame them.
I don't blame them.
Topic that we can talk about until we're supposed to start. What'd you get for Christmas related to pen turning or to turning? Anybody get anything really cool? Any of the new stuff that's out there? I'm watching. I'm not seeing, but I'm watching. I still can't read it because it's too far away.
I was just going to say, and I don't know how to make that one bigger without it.
That's okay. That's okay. Donna's getting the other one on, so
Yep.
we'll be
I
able
like
to
this
see
one.
the other one.
There you
I
go.
like this. Harold.
Yes, speak to us. Tell us what it says. Slouching.
Oh, okay. So the comment was, he's been watching the 10 minutes to better pen making
Yeah.
and wants to know why they take 20 minutes.
You know, we've been asking that question for years.
But there's 10 minutes of content, so what's the problem?
You know, I figured if you pay for 10, I'm going to give you a little bit more.
There's 10 minutes of usefulness.
Wow, that was cold.
So in
The
answer
rest
to your
is just
some answers to your questions. Although JP is cheering because Dawn is here.
All right, so if
Popped
anybody,
into the chat, a wealth of knowledge from Sarah. Sarah says blanks from exotic. Oh, Jules says blanks from exotic blanks. Bradley
that's
says he
good
got
thing.
some.
Everybody should have gotten those.
Bradley says finally got some turning between center bushings.
Good.
Terry says tack rags. I'm not sure how you use tack rags with pen turning, but okay.
you've never seen
Bryce
me
says-
sand.
Bonus time. Sarah says my children got cool stuff because of your fast delivery. Nathan says lots of resin. Jake says hi, Dawn. He heard you too. Should I turn the camera to show Dawn?
She's now running out the door.
Yep, she gone.
So much for that.
Oh, come on.
I'd have more than just Dawn mad at me though, because that would show the rest of the shop too. That's not hidden by the black curtain.
Well, thank you, Harold. I hope you like them. They work out great for you. We're going to be
Harold
expanding
saying-
more with the Bandit.
That would be cool.
I've got some more
Eddie?
ideas.
Eddie Brown, no relation, says he got an electric lunchbox. That's interesting.
That's cool.
Does that warm up your sandwich?
Not in Wisconsin, because you'd need it to be like 5,000 volts right now to warm up anything in
Worse off
Wisconsin.
the car battery.
No, Dean, you just need 1.21 gigawatts.
There you go. That might do. Pocket nuke.
It's 1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, the Bandit is endless creations. I really like it because you can just do so much with it. So they're a lot of fun.
Oh, this one's for Ed. David says, when are your flat top tool rods going to be available again?
I didn't know they weren't available. The 5/8 inch ones should be on the website. The 1 inch ones, I actually have a start to, but I don't have a number of different sizes yet. So I need to get that taken care of. But generally speaking, I would say probably a week, and that's a safe estimate that they'll start to be available again. That we'll have a full line again. As I say, some of the stuff is there now. If you're looking for stuff for a 5/8 inch, that is the diameter of the post. I'm sorry, the 5/8 inch or 1 inch is the diameter of the post that goes into your banjo. That's when I talk about 5/8 and 1 inch. That's what I'm talking about. And the 5/8 inch should have a whole lot of stuff there already. The 1 inch, we have some, but not a lot. So it may not be up yet. It will be shortly.
David says the 5-inch. So I would say, David, if you're seeing something that's not there that you need to be there, drop sales at Exotic Blanks an email. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
I see Kim is online in Florida. Nice to see you, Kim. 71 degrees. I think I'm going to be out there in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
or in a couple months.
I think we're going to have negative 71 here tomorrow. So,
It's working out well.
so yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah, the highest -7 tomorrow
Yeah.
at my house.
John,
Truth is,
Christopher
they're
says,
Go ahead.
Christopher says that he won the Glue Boo set last November, green, blue, and orange. He's been playing, but he can't quite figure out the order recommended. Is there a best order? Actually, Mark could come in and pop in and talk too, but
Yeah.
if somebody wants to
It
talk
all
about
comes down to the
the
material.
3 colors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, John and I do it completely differently. And if you do want, Dean, if you get a chance, look up the first video on my 10 minutes to better pen making, and I have a whole video in there on how I do it and the order that I do it in. And I know John's got one on Exotic Blanks in the order that he does it, and I think Ed's got yet a third one on there.
Yep.
So my order is I do the thin first to seal it. No, I do the medium first to fill it all up and seal it all up, and then I use the thin as my finish on it. But if you have any questions, shoot them off to me, or check out my video. It's the first one on my channel. Yeah, and make sure to allocate 20 minutes for that.
Yeah. That's Mark's way, and Ed and I do it the right way. I like the teal first. I use teal as a sealer, and it goes on really thin and wicks in, seals anything, any open pores. If there's scratches on the surface, it fills them, levels things out. And then depending on the material, if it's just acrylic, I'll use the orange label, which is the thin. If it's something with a little more pore filling, open pores or whatnot, I'll use some medium, but I let the blank decide what I need to use.
Yeah, for me, if it's a Lumalite, I only use the orange.
Yeah.
And I only need to put on a couple coats of orange.
Yep.
And we've talked about that in the past. I mean, all that's doing is it's going to give it much sharper color,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to give it a. I know everybody's going to tell you don't need to put a CA on top of, an acrylic.
You don't need to put a finish on anything if you don't want to.
But you'll see what a difference it does when you put it on.
It's harder than the resin. So the ultra thin, the teal label will also fill in them scratches, give you a more of a scratch-free surface if you've got any minor scratches. And if you start with something too thick, say the medium, and you've got your scratches on there, you haven't sanded them down well, you can actually seal those scratches visible in your finish. So you want to make sure that everything, and that's why I start with the ultra thin first.
Manny asks, is there a great way to separate the printed label that's been cut to size from the backing when you're doing a label?
Razor blade.
Well, for me, you know what I do? I don't have a big. And this is just me. I don't have a big issue when I print them. I print them landscape on my. I know it's hard for me to step on because I'm wearing the headset. I print mine landscape, and then as I'm doing it, I don't mind that the next one is peeled off just a little bit before I cut it off. I just let it sit there. It's not going to do anything, and then I'll peel that one off, and then when I do cut them, I'll always cut the opposite side so that I always have something where I can peel where there's a little bit of a lip or something, so I don't
Right, you're
worry
not damaging the image.
that I'm not damaging the image. So
Right.
I always cut
Yep.
to the opposite side so that there's something left for me to peel.
I always the first edge that goes down that gets covered up, I always just bend the corner over, and as it straightens it back out, the paper and the backing separate.
All right, so here's one I'll answer: is it better to paint, best to paint the tube or the blank?
Both.
I know you say both. I will tell you this: I only paint the hole, the blank itself, because when you do it, and I talk about this all the time in my demos, the light will go through, it'll hit the paint, and it'll come back out. If you paint the tube, the light has to come through, go through the glue, hit the paint, come back through the glue, and then exit it way out. And if you have any lumping or anything in the glue, you'll actually see that. So I only paint being honest with you,
Down.
my wife only paints the hole. And then when we do it, when I glue it together, it's just the hole, and I am fine with that.
For me,
And
it depends on how transparent the blank is.
And I use a nice I use apple barrel paints, paint it, let it sit about 24 hours. And if you check out one of my other videos that's out there on 10 minutes of better pen making, there's a huge difference if I paint
Is
it.
that the 30-minute one?
There's a huge difference if I paint it white or I paint it black.
Yeah, I painted the primary color of the blank.
Yeah.
I have an array of variety of colors, and I will say a lot of times if it's a transparent blank and I want to give something that's a little more depth to it, I won't use an opaque color. I'll use an automotive candy over the brass, and that way it gives it a little more depth, like on a cherry pit blank.
Yep.
All right. Given that, I don't see any more immediate questions, and we're at 6:04. So let's
Oh,
kick this
Christopher,
thing
we're
off.
late. We can't let that happen. How the heck can we end up being late? Everything was right on time before this.
Before
Yeah, right.
our headset fiasco. Well, with that said, I got nothing else to do, so
So welcome everybody. It's nice to have everybody back after Christmas. We missed the opportunity to have a Thursday gathering on Christmas Day, and so this is the first one for the new year. Let's enjoy it and have opportunity to watch John. As usual, we want to thank Dean for being here. Without him, nothing happens. And of course, Mark and John are here again, and without them, not much happens. So good news is everybody's back together. We had a great holiday season. We actually saw Mark and John a couple of times during the holidays. That was great. So all in all, it's been a good opportunity for us to get a few things done during the busy season. But now we're back to what we jokingly call normal. As you can see on the table and in the background, tonight we're going to play chemistry set. We have John who plays around with all these different kinds of resins. So he's going to be our star tonight. But before we listen to John for a while, let's also have a few minutes with Mark to talk a little bit about the MPG. Won't take long. You know, Mark doesn't talk much. So
he's a man of few words.
we'll have him drop in and say a few words. Mark?
Give us 10 minutes, Mark.
No, I can just just so you guys know, the Midwest.
Yeah, go on camera, Mark. That's fine.
Okay.
You can take the headphones off.
All right, I'll take
Yeah,
that.
you can take those off. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay.
You'll fit.
Give us 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You guys are killing me. You're killing me. So the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering.
There you go. Good
Midwest Pen Turners Gathering, April 17th and 18th. We have now, thanks to John, locked in all our vendors. We'll have one more vendor that we're going to post on the website probably tomorrow. So our vendor lineup is spectacular. We have now finalized the list of all the demonstrators. So I've got a couple more demonstrators who have yet to tell me they're right up on their topic. but those will be coming up and be putting up there. The only reason I want to bring it up, and every time I want to talk about this, is Jet Powermatic, which is one of our sponsors for this, will be donating via Woodcraft. We'll be donating one of the lathes. It's our giveaway lathe. And the sooner you sign up for the event, the more tickets you get for the bigger raffle items. So all the raffles are free. Pretty much everybody who comes, I will say the majority of the last couple of years has won something when you leave. We've got a great set of sponsors out here. But the sooner you sign up for the big raffles, like if you sign up now in January, you get 4 tickets. If you go to February, you get 3 tickets. March, you get 2. And then finally in April, you only get 1 ticket for the raffle. But we're going to be giving away a Jet 1015 lathe, as I said, sponsored by Jet Powermatic and Woodcraft. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact mpginfo@yahoo.com. Go on the website, check it out, MidwestPenTurnersGathering.com. It's always fun. Come out Thursday night. We can sit, we can chat. We as we're done setting up. Friday night, we all sit around in the hotel and we have a blast with it. And then Friday night, there is also a dinner that you can get. So I think it's a great time. If anybody has any questions, let me know. And if anybody has any comments that you've come to the event in the past, please let us know.
Can you read it?
Do our sponsors get tickets also? Oh, spouses. So the deal is the spouses and any in the immediate family, kids and stuff like that, they all get to come for free. So the $59 covers the entire family. We do know a couple people who will be coming and they will buy the extra ticket for them simply because they know that they're going to get twice as many raffle prizes when it comes out. So I've seen people do it both ways, but please trust me. If you're coming out, your spouse and or your children who are coming to the event, all free, all part of the $59.
But they're not in. He's wanting to know, are they in on the raffle? Do they get
You only
raffle
get
tickets?
You got
just get
one
the
raffle
right,
ticket.
per
One
register?
raffle ticket per.
What about the hotel? Is it busy? Or
No, so
where
that
are we at this point?
we're actually, that's an excellent point. I didn't check yet today, but the last I looked, the hotel is still offering the discounted rate that they said that was going to be ending in January.
Good.
So if you're signing up now, it's $40 less a night to sign up now. So if you're going to be spending any time with that one, you do have to sign up through the link on the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering website so that we get credit for it and that you get the credit on it. So go to MidwestPenTurnersGathering.com, go to the top. There's a link on top. Go to the hotel at that point, make your reservation that way, and you'll get credit for it and we'll get credit for it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John. I'll probably the hotel is the Hoffman Estates Marriott, and that's directly on the website also.
And the nice thing is, it's all right there. So once you check in, there's no reason that you have to leave anything. The vendor room is downstairs. The demo rooms are off to the side, so everything is held right here in that venue.
And we have also negotiated with the hotel that as part of your, if you sign up through our link, the breakfast is free.
Nice.
In the morning, so you'll get a free hot meal breakfast. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was reading the comments at that. So with that, I'm going to drop out, turn it over to John. I might do another commercial sometime later in the event because Ed's always nice to me to let me do a couple commercials.
We'll
But
give
with
you
that-
another 10 minutes.
No. The good thing is with that, I'm letting you know that John will also be one of our featured demonstrators at the MPG, doing 2 demos. And with that, John Underhill.
Wait a minute, you said 1 last time. Okay, well, anyhow.
Now it's 3.
Now it's 3. Awesome. Ed, anything else you want to say?
Nope, nothing.
All right.
buddy.
It's all me then?
All you.
All right, let me move a couple things so I'm not tripping over too much. All right, well, they had a great idea to pick casting for the January. So with that said, I brought a whole bunch of stuff. For me, casting is one of those things that I got into because of the love of creating something, and I wanted to have a little more creative control over what I turn, over my blanks. And I'll be honest with you, the funniest part about it all is my biggest inspiration into getting into casting was Dawn. And back in the early 2000s, Dawn Dawn's blanks were well known. Everybody fought over them, loved them, and it was very inspiring. It's what drove me to get into resin casting, and it's just funny that now I'm here, made friends with them all, and I get to hang out and do a demo here. So it's just kind of a full circle thing to start with the inspiration and end up here.
And I think I saw your first demo at MPG number 2 or something like that back in
2013 or 14.
Yeah.
It was one of my first. It was probably one of my first demos ever.
Yeah.
So and I haven't stopped learning since, and that's the fun thing about casting is you're never done learning because there's so many new things coming out. And the advantage now is to getting into casting is back when it first started, there were very few people that knew what they were doing, and we were all experimenting. You had to source a lot of your materials from 3 or 4 different places. You couldn't just log on to Exotic Blanks and buy everything you need. So nowadays, it's so much easier. I place an order, and I'm lucky enough to drive up here and leave home with it. But it's great because you guys don't have to fight over where you're going to buy something from or have to iron out your process and keep a list of who carries what and where and how much. It's all, you can find everything under one roof now. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're doing fine.
So the nice thing also about resin casting is, for me anyhow, I don't turn as much as I cast. Mark does a lot of casting, but he turns, I think, more than he pours. So as you get into this, you really have to make up your mind. Are you a wood turner that sometimes casts? Are you a caster that sometimes turns? And for me, obviously, it's I sometimes turn. But what I like about it is I'm able to experiment a little more and play around with new ideas and see what's throw it against the wall, see what sticks. So with anything getting into casting, there's always the safety aspect of it. So I always recommend before you buy your resin, ask around, watch videos like this, talk to people, find out what best suits your needs. YouTube's full of ideas out there. Sometimes they're not all great ideas, but you be the judge of it. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask people. That's what we're all here for. But safety-wise, you want to be safe. So I recommend knowing your products. Read your safety data sheets. Make sure that you're using the proper equipment to keep you safe. Obviously, a respirator is one of the most important things you can have. And most of the wood turners out there, or people that are into some type of woodworking, have respirators. But the difference is for resin casting, you want vapors on your cartridge. You don't want just fine particles. So make sure that you've got cartridges that are held up for vapors. Other than that, it's going to be safety glasses. And I will tell you, these are new, never been worn. I just took them out of the wrapper so I can actually see through them. I don't have speckles of resin or dye on them. And nitrile gloves. Now, as you can see, I wasn't wearing my smock tonight. Tonight I'm wearing a sweatshirt, and there's a reason for that. This is my shop shirt. I chose the cleaner one. Most of my shirts have resin spots. They have dye on them because that's what you're working with. Resin isn't clean. It's not something, it's like anything else. When you mix something up, it's going to splatter, right? You're going to touch dye. You're going to get it on your hands. I've got a few drops on me still from yesterday. It happens. So the last thing you want to do is ruin your clothing. You're going to spill it on your pants, your shoes. Hopefully you're not going to be like me and dump a whole cup over on your lap. But it happens. So it's not easy to clean up. It won't come out of your clothing very well. At that point, you're probably just going to have to replace them. So I like to use a lot of my old clothing for that. When you start casting, and again, I know this is the boring stuff, but we'll get through it very quickly. You're going to need a good setup. So what I recommend is set yourself up an area. It doesn't have to be very big. This, a table this size is more than enough to do what you need to do. But my advice is always, I know guys that'll pour on their table saw. They'll set a piece of wood over their table saw or some plastic and pour there. The problem is you're in an area where there's sawdust. So sawdust lingers, it floats out there, it lands on things, and the last thing you want to do is a clear cast. And then once it's done, pull it out, and magnified inside is a big old piece of sawdust. So I always say, I don't want resin on my tools, and I don't want sawdust in my resin, because resin magnifies things. So I like to have an area that's away from any of my power tools, away from my turning. And in my shop, I have just a small room in the back. I can close the door so that my sawdust and anything I put in the air isn't drifting in there. I can keep my mess in there and contain it. I'm not getting dyes or resin on my saw or on my countertops where I might be doing something particular, because dye doesn't always come out of naked wood, and you can ruin a project real quick that way as well. Other than that, I like to have a well-ventilated area, and that's important when you're working with resins. You want to make sure that you've got adequate airflow. And I've got a window right above my casting table with a box fan in the summer that I blow my air out. In the wintertime, I'll open my shop door and I'll get a breeze through. But I don't stay in there long enough. I pour it, I put it in the pressure pot, seal it, and walk out. So it's not like lacquer that can be an overwhelming odor. And we'll talk more about resins as we get that far. But it's just very important to have an area where you know where everything's at. So anytime you work with resin, you're going to have a working time. And most of your resins will tell you what kind of working time that is. Some definitely longer than others. In a pinch, you want to be able to reach everything that you need. So when I cast, I'll take everything out and set it on my table, open everything up, and I'll be ready. But every now and then I'll have a little resin left over in a cup. And so I've got a rack of molds behind me. I can quickly grab a mold. I can grab another color off the shelf. So I'm not just wasting that resin. I'm pouring it into maybe a bottle stopper or a Sierra blank size pen, something that at least I can get some use out of and not just throw in the garbage. So knowing where everything's at arm's reach. I recommend you have a table height that's comfortable. And I always say, we're not all the same in height. And for me, I'm a little more vertically challenged than most. So I like to have a table that when my arms are at a 90 degree, everything is pretty much right here and accessible. I'm not reaching up. I'm not bent over, reaching down. It's just easy, accessible. So get yourself a workbench that you can access very easily. And then I would suggest having a couple of shelves at the back wall where you can keep all of your dyes, any colorants, mica powders, spoons for adding your powders, things like that. Now you're going to need some tools. And tools...
What light is also important to me too.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, an overhead light, you want to be able to see what you're doing, especially if you're trying to match colors. So you don't want to be doing this stuff in low light areas because you may not get the color that you need. Floor mat is another thing. I like to put one of them rubber floor mats down so I'm comfortable when I'm standing on it. And it's just all about being comfortable, because if you're comfortable, you're safe. And clean, right? You want a clean workshop area. You want a clean casting area, because if things are getting too cluttered, that's when you start making messes and when you start having problems. So with that, a few things that you have to cast resin, besides our safety equipment. I'll put this on top of my head. You need a scale, right? Preferably one that measures in grams, although when I'm using larger quantities of resin, it's not uncommon for me to just measure it in ounces, because I might be pouring 15, 20, or 30 ounces at a time. So depending on what you're doing, I will say it's easier to mix a larger amount of resin than it is a smaller amount of resin. I talk to a lot of people that say, I was casting one pen blank and it came out cloudy, or it came out a little filmy or milky. And the problem is because you're dealing with a little bit of resin, so you have less room for air when you're dealing with smaller amounts. And so I like to pour a larger amount. And when I say larger amount, I'm usually working with a vertical casting rack, and I'll pour 15, 16 ounces of A and B. So for me, larger volumes work better because I know I can see the resin. I can see if it's mixed properly. I'm not scraping a cup, and I'll go a little more into that as we get to mixing, but I'm not scraping a cup in a small area, because obviously, like we said, the less amount of resin, the less amount of room for air. So the more resin you're using, the more room you have for air. Another thing you're going to need, some sort of a mixing container. Now for me, I like to use these. Anything that's kitchen safe is resin safe. And so these work very well. Plus it's got a spout on it, a nice handle, so I can hold this while I mix my resin. And I don't have to worry about a smaller cup. And I can have this full A and B and mix it quite well with just hanging onto it and going to town. But real quick, one other thing.
You just typically pick those up at like the dollar store or something, right?
Yes. Well, so yeah, you can get them in any place that sells any type of kitchenware. I know and don't sell them here at Exotic Blanks. If you're ordering micas and all the other stuff, you can pick all this up at one time, so you don't have to do any extra running. I also use individual cups for measuring. And so here's what I like to do. These are the Kroger. You get 50 of them. They're an 18 fluid ounce cup. They're a number 5. Real quick, let me go into what that means. As you start selecting your mixing materials, your mold materials, anything you're going to put resin in, you have to pay attention to that recycling code. Now that recycling code is on the bottom and it's a triangle. So you want to pay attention to these because these are what will keep you safe or what will get you in trouble. And I always say, you're fine using a 1, a 2, and a 5. You probably won't see 3, 4, and 7 because they're just not products that you're going to be able to use, but you want to avoid number 6, okay? Anytime you see a number 6, stay away from it. Number 6 will get you in trouble. Number 6 has that ability to melt once you put resin in it. Now, if you're going real quick, you might make it, but it's really not worth the risk. And it's not uncommon to use a number 6, put your resin in and mix it, and the minute you pick it up, the bottom melts off and it falls. And I should have brought my picture. I have for my PowerPoint when I do demos at the MPG, I talk about that, and I actually have a picture because I purposely mixed in a cup like that just to get the picture, and of course then I had to clean the mess up. So avoid number 6. 1, 2s, and 5s are going to be great. You're never going to have a problem. A lot of your food safe stuff is going to be number 2, or number 5. A lot of your detergent type stuff, things that you're going to use with any kind of solvent in it, are going to be a number 2, which is HDPE. And we all know HDPE works great with resin. So you're going to start out, you're going to have cups, and you're going to weigh your resin on the scale per cup. Now, I know if you watch YouTube, you've seen a lot of people place 1 cup on a scale and pour A and then zero it out and pour B. And if that works for you, that's great. It doesn't work for me for a couple reasons. And the biggest reason is because I've been pouring and then accidentally poured too much resin now of the second half. So now I have to come back and overcompensate with the first one. Well, now I've got way too much resin mixed and it's not what I needed. So now I'm wasting resin because you can't take the resin back out of the cup if they're already together. So I always mix my resin in 2 separate cups. And the safest way to do that is to write on them A and B. So now I know if I'm going to do 3 pours today, A is only going in cup A and B is only going in cup B. That way, once I pour them both in here, I can reuse those cups as long as I want, and I've been known to use them for a week. And that way I can mix, do all of my coloring and pouring, whatever I'm going to do, and when I come back for the next pour, I've got cup A and cup B. And it just keeps things a little safer for me. I'm not accidentally pouring too much resin and then actually figuring out, all right, what am I going to use it on? I don't want to throw it away, so I'm going to make a pour on something that I really didn't want in the first place. So the next thing is you're going to need a temperature gun. Now, you can get these just about anywhere. Oh, thank you, Ed. You can get these just about anywhere. And basically, when I first started out, I didn't worry about reading the temperature because at that point in time, nobody was doing it. How we would do it, you can take small dowel rods. I buy these bamboo skewers and cut them in half. They're great for adding tints. But you would be stirring your cup and just base the viscosity, thank you, based on the thickness. So you're looking at saying, all right, well, it's like milk right now, but I want to get it more like warm honey or like warm syrup. So that's kind of how you judged when you were going to pour your resin based on the thickness of it. And then sometimes you poured a little too early, sometimes you waited a little too long, and you paid the consequence. Well, now that we've all got these heat guns, you basically just take a reading of it, and it tells you what the temperature is, and you know when to pour. And I'd like to say there's one set temperature that'll get you to the finish line every time, but it really depends on what you're pouring. Because if you're pouring straight color, then you can wait somewhere between 95 and 110, 115 if you're quick, depending on what kind of character you're going to put in your blank. But if you're pouring over something like pine cones or acorn caps, you need to get deep in that blank and around all those curves and corners and crevices. then you're going to want to pour it somewhere around maybe 90 degrees. So you may compromise color separation for resin penetration. And this is what happens if you don't get your resin in all the way soon enough. You start to see all these little voids. As you can see, the holes. It's because the resin was too warm and I couldn't get it in, even under pressure. I couldn't get it in where I needed it because it got too thick. So if you wait too long to pressurize it, that's what you're going to end up with. A lot of open pores and holes. But it sure makes for a great education piece. But I didn't mean to do that. I'll admit it. I can admit my mistakes. I did this, I've been resin casting for almost 20 years now. And I've had this piece for probably at least 15 years of it. So it happens. Stuff happens, right? I don't like to call them failures because it really isn't a failure. It just told me what not to do next time. So it's all educational. I always say I might not be able to tell you what to do, but I can tell you what not to do. And that's half the learning. So temperature gauge is great. It tells you when. It kind of tells you, your resin will say how much working time you have. And, like the bottle may say you have 7 to 12 minutes working time or whatever. But that's just a rough guess. It really comes down to the time of year, the temperature of your shop, the temperature of the resin at the time, because I can put my resin outside right now and it might have a 2-minute working time and I can get an extra 30 seconds out of that because it's cold. So, and I've been known to put gallons of resin in my refrigerator downstairs just to cool it down so that I can maybe do an 8 or 9 color pour where I would normally only maybe get 4 or 5 colors. So you just have to play a little bit. Mold release, that's important. You're going to want to spray your molds. And this just helps demold them so that you're not damaging your molds, whatever you're using, and allows you to reuse them. Now, some molds aren't reusable, but we'll talk about that a little more as well. Mixing. So for me, and I've been using this drill and this exact spade bit since about 2008. And of course, the drill looks like it is just a designated resin drill. And it does the job. But I only use it for mixing resin. In fact, so much that if I wanted to take this drill bit out, I'd have to grab each of these with channel locks and force them because I've kind of resin glued this shut. But it will come out. But the nice thing about it, I've taken a spade bit and I've broke the tip off in the vise. I just put it in the vise, snapped the tip off, took it to a belt sander, and I rolled all these edges to round them off. So there's no sharp edges. Nothing's going to break through my cup, cut into my plastic to leave plastic shavings in my resin. And it really allows me to mix my resin quicker. I don't care how much air I add to it because I'm going to put it under pressure. If I'm using urethane resin, it has to go under pressure because as urethane cures, it creates a gas, and those gases will show up as bubbles in your resin. And this is a prime example of that. Let Dean switch over to this other camera. Prime example, this was Alumilite resin, clear, and as you can see, let me hold a glove behind it, you can really see it. You see all those white specks, that's air bubbles. And those air bubbles weren't from mixing, those air bubbles were from curing. And that's the gases that this resin creates as it cures and solidifies. So
I once saw a professional demonstrator tell me that he did that on purpose to do an underwater test.
There's a lot. I get a chuckle out of especially some of those. Everybody has their own niche. I don't put anybody down. I laugh because I'll be honest with you, you're going to have blanks that don't turn out. I have blanks that don't turn out, and it's just part of the beast. If you're not experimenting, you're not learning. And call it what it is. If I get air bubbles in a blank, I'm going to say, man, I didn't get under pressure soon enough. I'm not going to call it an underwater cast, but I might say, yeah, it kind of looks like underwater, but I don't know, most bubbles float up and out of the way when you're underwater. So mixing resin, I see a lot of guys, they'll use a popsicle stick or a tongue depressor, something a little larger, and that's great. If you're using a couple ounces of resin, you can mix that just fine. It would be hard to mix a small amount of resin with the drill, so you might have to use something. But again, in my shop, I don't pour a little bit of resin. I usually, if I do anything, it's going to be at least half a cup, and I'm going to use my drill for it. Because here's the way I look at it. If my working time is say 2 minutes. And that's with a resin I really like to use, which is white resin, the white urethane from Alumilite. It's got a 2-minute working time. And that's on an average day. If it's really warm out, that it might be significantly less. It might be 1.5 minutes. So your first pour of the day will tell you really how much working time you have based on the time of year. I'm going to use my drill because it's going to speed up my mixing time to allow me to have more time to color it, pour it, if I'm going to manipulate it somehow, and then put it in the pressure tank. If I spend all of my working time stirring, I don't have any time to pour it. And it's still at chance whether or not it's all mixed properly. So that will come with experience. But don't let anybody tell you, oh, you introduce way too much air with that drill to pour that resin, because you're going to put it under pressure and all of those bubbles are going to be compressed and you're not going to see them. So I would rather mix quick and have more time to pour than mix slow and have less time to pour.
Which also leaves you more time in the pressure pipe.
Absolutely.
Isn't it fair to say that an improperly mixed one will cause like white streaks?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things. Let's talk about failures or educational moments. So I just showed you the one with no pressure, right? We all know it's going to create bubbles, and you're going to get these bubbles. But another one is moisture. So in this case, I took this pine cone, and I poured a cup of resin, and I just threw it in there. Now you see all that foaming. If you see anything like that foaming in your resin, moisture is your problem. Moisture is an issue. And this pine cone I had picked a year prior. So it was sitting in my basement in a box for a year, because that's usually what I do. Anything I collect this year, I'll cast next year. And that way I'm always a year later. I store everything in a cardboard box, never in plastic. You want it to breathe. You don't want it to build mold. That's the wrong kind of mold you want to use in resin casting. So I always pick them up. Now this pine cone was a year old, and all I did was I took it out of a box. It was dry to the touch, and I dropped it in that little bit of resin, and it foams up. That's what's going to happen with resin. Resin's going to foam up. It's going to get moisture and resin don't work well together. So if you're not mixing it properly, and you know what, I apologize because I realized that I didn't bring that. I've got these little sample pucks, so to speak, that I bring for my demos usually, and it basically shows what the problem is. But if you don't have your resin mixed properly, or if you have more A than B, and in this case, the resin that I'm using is Alumilite Clear, so it's equal parts of A and B by weight. And it's a urethane resin. I like it because it's very durable and it cures much quicker. So if you don't have it mixed properly, or you have too much A, what you're going to get is you're going to get film, you're going to get white streaks, and it's because you didn't mix it properly or you didn't stir it well enough. So I always like to add just a little extra B when I mix my resin. So anytime I'm working with clear or clear slow, I just put a little bit extra B, and it ensures that I'm not going to have an improper equation, because you can have extra B and be just fine. You just can't have extra A. So I err on the side of caution. Resin-wise, we've got a lot of resins out there we can pick from. I started out with polyester resin because it was the only thing that people in their garage could buy at that time and play around with. It used to be people were pro or con Alumilite or polyester resin. It all depends, right? In the beginning, you were either a PR guy or you were a urethane guy. And quickly, as this hobby evolved, we realized that they both have a place in casting. There's pros and cons to all types of resin. And obviously the three resins that we use in casting are polyester resins, or PR, primarily Silmar 41, and that's what I use. It works very well. It's a raw resin with a dropper bottle of catalyst. So you add so many drops per ounce. And the bottle will tell you to add 7 to 10 drops per ounce, and I will tell you to add 2 to 3. And the difference between that is turning glass that's going to be brittle and throw shrapnel in your face, or peeling ribbons. So if you make polyester resin too hot when you mix it by adding too much catalyst, you're actually going to create a very hard brittle resin. So I like to keep mine on the softer side. And by doing that, it might take 18 to 20 hours to cure. And then it comes out of the tank a little tacky on the top surface, but that's natural because it allows you to pour multiple layers and it bonds to itself very well. So PR has an odor. I've become nose blind to it. I don't want to say I enjoy it because, I mean, how can you really enjoy those odors? But I don't find it foul. I don't dislike polyester resin. It's just a different resin to work with. And so for me, I like polyester resin for snakeskin blanks and feathers and things where I need a really thin resin to get in and around that. But it shrinks a little more than other resins as it cures, so sometimes it's not ideal for worthless wood or larger casts because it's not as durable. You can't cut threads in polyester resin. It will chip and break a little easier.
Is it also okay to just say, I found that with PR, it's a little bit harder to get really nice color separation if you're doing a color blend.
Yeah. So polyester resin, it's one of those things that if you want a good color separation blank, then you're probably better off to use a urethane or an epoxy because polyester resin, you're going to wait a lot longer, and then the working time, once it reaches temperature, it really starts to kick quicker, so it's harder to get a color separation. Guys do it, but it comes with a lot of practice and a lot of experimentation.
If you've never used it, it has an odor, is a very nice way of saying it will permeate the house, and it smells extremely strong.
So
Donna and I both have no problem with it, so when we were casting, it was no big deal.
Yeah.
But the neighbors could smell it, so you're not talking about a little smell.
I live in the country, but I do have houses nearby, and when I pour in the summertime, I'll open the basement windows, I'll close the shop door, and I'll open the window and put the fan, and I'm blowing the fumes outside. And my wife, who I always say has a bionic nose, will come home 5-6 hours later and walk in the house and say, oh, you were pouring feathers today. She can smell it. She's also good when I cut antler. I can cut one piece of antler, and 8 hours later, she'll walk in the door and say, you were cutting antler today, weren't you? So just know that polyester resin. Yes, Dean.
Question comes in, since you're talking about the different resins and some of the pros and cons. Bryce asks, is there one that you think is best if you're cutting your own threads in the resin?
Yes.
For kitless.
Yes. So for kitless, I say use the urethane, the Alumilite Clear or Clear Slow. It's the most durable, dense resin, and it'll hold up to more of an impact. So definitely stay with the urethanes.
And keep sharper edges.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's not going to get brittle and crumble on you. Most people that make kitless pens use the urethane, the Clear, Alumilite Clear or Clear Slow. And it looks like this. So this is important. I've talked to people in the past that have went out and they've taken my advice and they've bought the clear resin. But one thing that they didn't realize or pay attention to, there's epoxy that's also clear from the same company. And Alumilite sells their brand of epoxies, and they have clear casting epoxy, Clear Plus. They have several different epoxies. But it says clear on the label. One noticeable difference, though, is you'll see up here in a corner, it'll say, and it's not on this one, but you'll see, it'll say amazing. And if your clear resin says amazing, you're buying epoxy. So if you're unsure about what you're getting, call them up. Alumilite, Polytech, it's all the same company. Talk to them. Ask them which one. If you're buying them from Ed and Dawn, shoot them an email. Dean mans the little chat box in the bottom there. Reach out to him and ask him, hey, I want urethane. I want to make sure I get the right one. And if you're unsure, shoot me an email. It's very important that you get the products you think you're getting, because if you buy the wrong one, you're not going to get the results you want.
And Alumilite changes their labels regularly. So if you think you got the right one,
exactly,
they'll change it next week.
I've got resin at home, and I usually buy my resin in the 80 pound set, so it's goes a little longer anyhow, lasts a little bit longer, and every other time I get it, the label's different. So I did this. It's a little cold in Ed's shop, but I think you can get the idea. I used epoxy on this, and it's the Alumilite epoxy, and these were poured the same day. I mean, They're hard, they're solidified. The difference is urethane resin cures, and I think they say it takes 24, 48 hours to fully cure, but it comes out of the mold hard. Epoxy resin, I poured this Monday. All right, it's Thursday. So you would think since Monday morning it would have plenty of time to fully cure. But it doesn't. It stays flexible for 7 to 10 days. Now, the nice thing about this is eventually it'll straighten itself out, but epoxy stays flexible for a long time. So it's okay to demold after a couple days, depending on the model that you're using. But the thing is, if you want to turn it, you can't. You've got to wait. You've got to give this thing 7 to 10 days to fully cure before you can actually turn it because it stays flexible.
And that's a big trend on Facebook. It's people talking about epoxy because it makes it easier. You know, it's easier to cast, but it's a nightmare to turn.
You know, and I don't even know if it's so much easier to cast. It really all comes down to what you're going to make. But I see a lot of people that say, well, I use epoxy because it has a better adhesion quality. It sticks better. So here's my question, though. These are both cast in the same tube. All right, and this is urethane, clear with a little bit of tint in it, and I scored the tube, and I can't peel it off the resin. It's breaking at the base where the plug was, but the resin has bonded, the urethane resin has bonded to this tube. This is epoxy. They say epoxy has a better adhesion quality, but I haven't been able to prove that. So it really comes down to what you want to do. Yeah, I think epoxy has an odor as well. I don't use a lot of it. In my shop, it has a purpose. And there's only a couple of blanks that I will use it in. And that's because I've tried other resins and they just didn't work. So what I like to do is I always use my go-to resin, which is clear. And then if it doesn't work, I'll try one of the epoxies to see if maybe I get a better result, or maybe I have to start thinking about a sealer. Do I need to seal this object with something? Do I need to coat it with something else? I will tell you epoxies are nice because you can layer it. Most epoxies are made to be poured in layers. So they've come out with these deep pours for us so that we can cast things like this in a solid state and it'll set up. But initially, all your epoxies were made for bar tops and floors because you pour it in a very thin layer and then you continue to build it up. Thankfully, the evolution of resin is constantly changing, and wait a week, you'll see 2 new brands of epoxy on the market. So I personally like urethane, and I like everything about urethane. I think it colors well. I think you can tint it. You can cast objects in it. If you want to, like this was one I did years ago, you don't even have to add color to it. This was a pack of strawberry and cream oatmeal. And my daughter challenged me to see if I could make a pen out of oatmeal. So that's what that blank is. Just
Here, hold on.
raw resin.
Whoop. Why'd you hold that one up again, John? Flip over to the...
Put it on the other. There you go.
So oatmeal, cookies, or strawberry and cream oatmeal. And I said, with resin, half the fun is just experimenting.
Is it? And you're probably going to get to this, but I don't know if now would be a good time to mention. I mean, a lot of this, as you said, it takes practice, and you've got to do it a couple times. I see a lot of people who will do it once and then immediately go to Facebook and social media and say, I didn't do it right.
This stuff sucks.
And then everybody says, well, try this.
Right.
And try to go to epoxy. Try to go to whatever. Part of it is just take your lump on the first thing, realize what you did, and keep working with the things that you know in the long run are the right products to be doing this on.
And like I said, for me, it all comes down to the project.
Yep.
So go ahead.
If we can pause for a couple of questions, and then I'm also going to remind Ed and Mark, we're hearing from the chat, if you guys are going to talk, we're going to have to either repeat your stuff or make sure you guys get closer because you're far enough from the mic that they're not hearing you guys clearly.
Okay.
A couple questions. There's actually quite a few. So let me step back up here. That's why I wanted to stop for now. Scott was asking what's best for beginners. I think you're going to come up with the exact same recommendations for everybody,
Yes.
but anything
Yes.
special for beginners?
Yes. What I would recommend for beginners is Alumilite Clear Slow. It's got the longest working time, and even though a longer working time means it's a longer curing time, it's still only 3 hours to cure it. And the nice thing is you can pour something as small as a pen or as large as a bowl. it really there's no restrictions on clear slow because it's such a slow curing resin, and it gives you time to fine tune your technique, and then you can start looking at maybe something that cures a little quicker if you want.
Which you just answered, I think, the next question, because Kim asks, is epoxy better for large pours like a bowl? And again, you've got an alternative there now.
It comes down to epoxy. I've used epoxy for large casts because they wouldn't fit in a pressure pot. Epoxy doesn't need to be cured under pressure. So if you're going to cast something this big around or make a river table, then you're going to have to do something with epoxy, and you're going to have to make sure that it's warm enough, that it's thin, that you can pour it in shallow layers. Hit it with a heat gun to pop your bubbles as you're pouring, not introduce a lot of air. It comes, like I said, it's a process that you'll have to play with, and thankfully there's a million videos out there on how to do it. But yes, if it won't fit in a pressure pot, you're stuck. You're going to have to use epoxy because it's the only other thing out there.
Manny asks, where does liquid diamond fit in?
It's an epoxy. Yes, liquid diamond is an epoxy. It's just another brand out there. I've used liquid diamond as well, and it's fine. For an epoxy, it worked just fine for what I was using it for. But again, it's still a longer curing time. And the problem with epoxies, they age a little quicker than urethanes. Over time, you'll find that epoxies will turn amber and yellow in a cast state quicker. All resins will do this, but epoxies seem to do it just a little quicker.
Are you also going to talk? I don't know if they can hear me, and so you can repeat the question. Are you also going to talk, though, that some of them, like epoxies and stuff, really almost need a post finish on it in terms of like a CA or something?
Yeah, we'll get to that too. As far as finishing, a lot of your resins, I recommend some sort of a finish over it, just because the resins are softer. Even though they feel hard, if you make a pen and there's no finish on it with writing it, using it, just wear and tear, you're going to dull the surface of that material. So I like to put a finish over them, clear finish, and whether it be glue boost, a spray lacquer on something larger, it just helps preserve that surface.
Bryce asks, are you spraying mold release in those tubes?
In my clear tubes, no, not at all. There was no mold release in that tube, and it peeled right off the epoxy. And I don't know if, like I said, for something that's supposed to have a better adhesion quality that everybody says, it peeled right off the plastic. So, and again, that was just a raw tube, and I poured that Monday at the same time. So no, I don't put any mold release in any of my vertical tubes because I normally just turn them off the blank. I use them. So for me, we'll talk about it real quick. I like these tubes for a couple reasons. One, I can see what's going on as I pour them. But another, when I'm done with it, because I sell most of these casts, you can also see what's going on in it. I don't have to then take this blank and turn it down and make it all shiny and pretty because the tube does that for me. So it allows me, to take something. You can get a pretty good idea over what your duck call is going to look like if you want to pour a blank that looks like a mallard duck. So, and that's kind of what I did with this one.
Can you also mention the benefit of using those kind of tubes as opposed to something like PVC?
I'll definitely get into that more. Okay. So we'll talk a lot more in depth about the racks, but those clear tubes are pennies on a dollar when it comes down to using them. So I turn them off as I don't try to reuse those tubes. They get turned off.
I think the last one is Sarah is said, isn't amazing clear cast open time 30 minutes versus clear slow 12? But clear cast, I'm assuming, is the epoxy again?
Yes. Amazing clear cast is the epoxy. And epoxies do have a longer working time. Yes. They have a longer working time, which is, I think, sometimes 30 to 40 minutes. But again, it's 10 days fully curing. So I don't like to wait 10 days. But that's just me.
Okay. I think we're caught up. Back to your program.
All right. Also, someone had asked about white. And this is what I'm using. Make sure I get the color here. The label. This is the Alumilite. Now, it says amazing casting resin white. But,
Wow.
yeah, So just to add confusion to it, if you're buying white resin, then yes, it's probably going to say amazing on here. But it's not like amazing on the epoxy, which is usually over here in a big circle. So,
Which
just
I
a
did
bit-
post the link to Exotics, to the Illuminate White on Exotics, and the label that's in the picture on Exotics doesn't say amazing, but it does say very clearly Illuminate White now instead of casting
yes.
resin. But again, I don't know if that's the new image or the old.
If you're looking for the white resin, I love white resin. I've seen where people have said over the years that they won't demonstrate it because it can't be used for pens because it sets too quickly. This is one of my go-tos. I use as much white as I do clear because it's so fast. I can pour a block like this, and in 10 minutes I'm demolding it and pouring another one. So you can get a lot of work done in a daytime. And I will say, one of the things that you're going to notice, you can't always tell what's going on with your blocks when you pull them out. You see a lot of this online where people say, hey, check this out. And it was like, ooh, that looks great. How do you know what it looks like inside? This looks pretty blah outside, doesn't it? There's really not anything going on in this. I would think this kind of sucks. There's nothing to it. But you got to cut it open. You got to see what's going on inside, and that's where you start to get your character. So as you pour this resin, like I said, you see it's blah. The tops are always cool. They always look better than the inside. But everything else is just residual because it gets pushed around a lot. But obviously, this was just one color pour because I wanted to show the difference in the tops and the bottoms. But you can manipulate this color as well, and we'll talk about that as I get to do the cast. So, for me, I like Alumilite Clear urethane resin for most of my pen blanks and clear cast. But here's the drawback to it. It's not meant for doing large objects. It's not meant for doing really deep stuff. That's where Clear Slow comes into play. And they call it Clear Slow for that reason. It cures slower, which means it doesn't build up as much heat and it doesn't crack. Now, if everything got really hot, and one example that I should have here and I don't is a really thick cast of polyester resin. Polyester resin can get very hot. And the problem is that heat can't escape the resin quick enough, so what you get is called a thermal crack. And it literally cracks. It looks like a broken windshield on a car. Somebody hits it, it doesn't break out, but you see the spider web of the crack through it. And that's exactly what resin will do if it gets too hot and the resin can't dissipate that heat. So Clear Slow allows us to pour larger objects because the resin cures slower. So this was white resin, and I used just some colorants, 2 different colors to replicate ice cream on an ice cream scooper. But you can get away with the whites on something this large. It's just a handle blank. Clear Alumilite White will do just fine for that. But if I were going to cast this in a clear transparent resin, I wouldn't use clear. I would use Clear Slow. Something like this bowl, this was actually a block, and so this was all Clear Slow because it's just a larger mass, right? So something larger, whether it be a small little bowl like this or something really large, you would want to use Clear Slow so that your resin cures much slower. And somebody asked, why wouldn't you just use slow? Well, you can do that. For me, I'm a full-time resin caster. So I retired 6 years ago from my full-time job. I've been resin casting for almost 20 years now, and it's always just been a hobby after work. When I retired, one of the things I told myself was, I'm either going to stay home and really turn this into a business and stay busy, or I'm going to go out and get another job. Well, it didn't take too long for me to realize I like being home all day. I like being in my shop playing, and I don't have to leave when it's cold outside. So this has worked out well for me. I like to just stay in my shop and play. And so what I do now is I consider production casting. And for me, if I can pour a block like that in 10 minutes, why would I want to wait 3 hours? But for somebody starting out for a learning curve, I recommend go with Clear Slow. I keep, right now in my casting room, I've got the 80-pound sets, which is 5 gallons of A and B. I've got clear clear slow, white, and then I've got some epoxy. And again, it just all depends on the job or the task at hand, what I'm going to use. So as you get more into this, you're going to figure out what works best for you. And if you like clear slow and you're not in a big hurry, then I say go with it. It gives you more working time and you can get it done. But one task for me is, as I'm measuring these out and I've got all my colors, now I'm waiting for it to reach temperature so that I can pour it. And a prime example of that would be here. And I have these 2 small sliver blanks. They were poured from the same mix. But as you can see, I poured one at 80 degrees and I poured one at 100 degrees, and it was blue and yellow. Now, if you look at the 80 degree one, you can see all the green that kind of shows up in the background there because my colors are bleeding together. That resin isn't hot enough to keep distinct color separation. At 100 degrees, I have blue and I have yellow. I have very little, maybe a tint of green at some of the edges, but nothing like the 80 degree one here where I've got a third color. So in pouring those colors, the problem is if I'm using clear slow and I mix those up, now I have to stand there and I have to keep watching my temperature, and I'm waiting for that to reach 100, 110 degrees, wherever I'm going to pour it, 115 sometimes. But I have to wait for resin to reach that. And once it reaches that temperature, then I can pour it. If it's pen blanks, I'm going to use clear because I'm going to hit my temperature much quicker in half the time that I'm going to in clear slow. So it just speeds things up for me. Yes, it's not my shop, it's my studio. If you've seen it right now, you'd think it was, in severe need of being cleaned. But I do own a broom. I just haven't used it because I've been busy, right? When I'm in production mode, I'm busy. I keep telling my wife, I'll get to it. I'll clean it. And I will eventually, but I wanted to make sure that, I get enough done. And every time I come up here, I really push myself because I want to make sure that I have enough visual aids and things. And so this is another example, basically, of resin casting. And this was blue, orange, and white. Now, as you can see, the side reflects the colors, blue, orange, and white. But what happened, because I poured them before the resin was ready, I got a lot of brown mud looking in there, didn't I? That's not an appealing blank. So temperature plays a big point on when you should pour your resin and your success rate, or at least the blanks that you're going to get. Now, the nice thing about resin, you can pour things vertically. You can pour things in a block mold. And as you can see, the red one was poured in a block mold. It was basically a flat open box mold. And I poured it, as you can see, all the zigzags on top. And then the character, the sag goes up and down in the blank, right? This was poured vertically. So this was a tall upright blank that I poured in through the top. And you get a different characteristic. Now, it was poured in layers. So in this aspect, I start to get kind of a rainbow effect of layers. My black and white were poured out of one cup together, and I have a gray and blue. So things start to sag down the blank, right? So there's 2 different options as far as vertical or horizontal molds. And another aspect of it would be in the rods. Same thing. These were vertical pours, but the difference is, as you can see, these were layers. So I poured a little silver, a little black, a little silver, a little black. Obviously, the real results are going to be when we turn this down because you're only seeing what clung to the sides and not the swirling that's going on in the middle. But what you can really see here is another technique is how you pour your colors. And in this case, all of these colors were poured out of the same cup. So now all of your colors move together throughout the pour, right? And that's just, I always say when I'm pouring blanks, you can see it in this one real easily. You can see kind of a squiggle on how that fell in the cup because the 2 were poured out of the same cup together. And I'll show you how I achieved that in a few minutes. Where this one was just, the cup was dumped. So the difference between the 2 are a slow spout stream or a large pour, quickly filled it. And another way to change the characteristics of your resin. So the best part about resin casting is there's no one way to do it. And the problem is when you get something that turned out really cool, sometimes it's hard to replicate. So get you a notepad, Write down what you did. Write down the colors you used, the temperature that you poured it at, your ratios. Was it an even amount of A, B, and C colors, or was it a lot of A, a little bit of B, and a tiny bit of C, right? So the color combinations can play. You could take 3 different colors and pour it 4 or 5 different times and get a totally different character based on your ratios. I like to have fun with that because sometimes I want a blank that's maybe a little darker, so I'll use a lot more of a darker color with lighter colors as accents. But what I like to do on a good color cast, and something with the red one explicitly, I'll pick a solid color and then I'll go a high shade and a light shade, right? I'll go a dark black and then I'll go a light white. So it kind of gives a contrast, the highs and the lows with that good color. And it's something you see with a lot of color casts, right? Guys will mix their colors accordingly. So I get going, I get kind of off track when I start talking like this, and then we wind up somewhere that we probably shouldn't yet. But one quick word, what I wanted to just share tonight is with our casting, these are examples of the 3 types of casting, right? We have our clear casting, which is this playing card, and I used the king for the cap and then a diamond lower card for the bottom. We have color casts here in the middle, or we have embedded objects. And those are basically the 3 known casts that a lot of us like to play around with, right? Embedded objects are huge, and color cast is probably the most, you'll build the most skills doing a color cast. And everything you learn, color casting will carry over, because the difference between color casting and clear casting, embedded object casting is you have to wait, you have to get your colors, you have to pour them exactly how you want them, whether you're pouring over something, through something, around something. Did you pour them all from one cup at one time? Did you it's endless. So, and the other thing is, then you start to see things like these, and these are some new ones. Sorry, Dean. These are some Valentine's blanks and pens that I came up with this year, and it's just with the help of a 3D printer and a lot of time pouring the individual hearts and then swirling around them. You can have a lot of fun with this stuff. And a resin cast also allows us to replicate things. You can take a label off something that you use and make a pen out of it, right? So we can have all sorts of fun with resin, but we have to know, there's a few things we have to know first. Another thing that's nice is people that are into larger projects. Thankfully, this is kind of the fun stuff you get when you have a friend like Dick Singh. Dick's knowledge is endless, and it's very much appreciated. He's a great friend to all of us. And to go to Dick Singh's shop for a day and just get to spend time learning how to do this kind of stuff. Dick taught me how to make the wooden jar lids with a resin inlay, and so I wanted to go home and make the opposite of that. So I came up with the resin lid with the wood inlay. So just 2 more options of little things you can do with just a little bit of resin left over, able to pour them. And obviously we've all seen the dandelions. Resin magnifies everything that you put in it. So in this case, compared to my hand, that looks pretty big for a dandelion, right? But it's actually the same size dandelion as all of them you find in your yard, but resin magnifies it. So just know that anything that you don't want in that blank is going to be magnified, and you're really going to see it when it's all said and done. Colors. Colors are another thing you can play with. And in this case, it was salt and pepper shakers, so I wanted kind of a white marble look for the salt and kind of a black marble look for the pepper. And it's not always just what we cast. Sometimes it's just the colors that we put together, to make a nice little set. So with that said, I think I'll get all this stuff out of the way now. We can, because I don't want to get resin on it, and we can have a little fun. Any questions?
Nothing for questions, but since you're going to be doing some switchover and cleaning here, it's probably a good time for our first giveaway.
Awesome.
Our first giveaway tonight, actually, I think all the giveaways tonight, not everybody's going to be a casting, so Dawn didn't want to necessarily give away some casting stuff to somebody who wouldn't use it. They're very lucky. So today's giveaways are a $25 gift card to Exotic Blanks. So for the first one, we'll make this one nice and easy. Type cast into your YouTube chat, and we'll draw from that.
This stuff can stay here.
Can I just yell cast and get the mine in?
Are
Sure.
you kidding? Didn't you already fill the back of my car with stuff?
Yeah. You're not supposed to say that in front of me.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a secret. Oops. Ixnay on the...
On the casting, eh?
All right.
Uh-oh.
Whoa, you know one thing I didn't mention? So, I talk a lot about lights and warmth. This time of year, it's not uncommon for your resin to be really, really thick. And so what I like to do, I will pour my resin in a cup. And if I don't want to spend twice as long trying to get it stirred up or mixed, and this is really obvious in some of the epoxies, it'll come out, it'll almost be like honey dropping out of the container. Get yourself a 125 watt light bulb. I get this in my local farm mart. They use it for some of like the chicken coops and things like that. It generates warmth, heat. You can't use an LED light bulb. You need something that's going to create some heat. I get a clamp shop light. I plug it in. And what I've done is I've dented the bottom of this so that it just sits there. I'll pour my resin in the cup and I'll set it out there about 6 inches or so from the light. And then I have a roasting pan, a foil roasting pan that I picked up at the local store. And it's something you'd use as a lining in a larger roasting pan or whatever. But it's just a foil oval roasting pan. And I'll just bend it and shape it over that. It doesn't have to be completely covered because heat's going to rise. You just want the heat to not rise up and out of the way. You want it to kind of linger a little bit. And so about 5 to 10 minutes in front of that 125 watt light bulb, and your resin's going to be much thinner. Now, if you get it too hot, if you're multitasking like I do, and sometimes you forget you were doing something over here because you got too involved over there and realize that time has gone by, and by the time you get to your resin, it's like water, and when you take the temperature, it says 130 degrees. Just turn the light off, let it sit, let it cool down. When it gets down to about 90 degrees, 80 degrees even, you're fine. But remember, you're adding A, which is already going to be probably 59 to 72 degrees, depending on the year. So, you mix them together, you've got the cold resin going in with the other warm side. So it's going to drop that temperature down to a working temperature. Now, you wouldn't want to do it if they were both 95 degrees, because then you're not going to have enough time to mix it, color it, and pour it. But trust me, I've been there, I've overwarmed it, and you just set it aside and let it wait.
And my bad, I had tech difficulties. It's been one of those nights. First the microphones, now this. Everybody, if you haven't seen the message, type it a second time.
Oh no.
It didn't start capturing right away. Capture took a little bit to start capturing for some reason.
All right, so everybody that typecast once, type it twice.
Well, now I'm gonna get people that are typing it like 6 times, but unfortunately for them, it only works once, no matter what.
Yeah.
Once we
Yeah,
get
you could typecast like 50 times. It'll only just put you in once, but that's all right. At least you know you're in, right? Better safe than sorry.
It is working now, though. So.
All right. Awesome. All right. One thing I didn't talk about also is pressure pots. So, a pressure pot obviously is something you're going to need when it comes down to resin casting, especially with urethane resin. A lot of people ask me, well, can I use a vacuum chamber to suck the air out of the resin? No. The problem with that is, and we had someone we know send us a picture of what had happened to them, and that I use at the MPG. What happens is when you pull a vacuum on resin, you're expanding the air, right? You're enlarging in those bubbles. So essentially, what happened was it came out with bigger, larger bubbles and a mess. Plus, you pull it out of your container. So vacuum is for stabilizing. Vacuum pulls the air out of your material and replaces it with resin. Pressure pots compress the air so that you can't see it, and then the resin can kind of fill all those voids and nooks and crannies. So you want pressure. Plus, someone will ask, well, can I just do vacuuming in a pressure pot if I've got the conversion? And I don't advocate that either, because the problem is you can't see what's going on inside that tank. So if you have a a tank with a solid lid and you're pulling a vacuum in there, you don't know when enough is enough, and it's real easy to suck everything, the resin, out of the bowl that you have in there, and then pretty soon you're starting to get it up the line and into your pump, which can damage your pump. So I always say you want to be able to see into a vacuum chamber. In a pressure pot, you don't want to be able to see into, because you're going to put about 50 pounds of pressure in this thing, and so you want it safe. With that said, I like any pressure pot that'll work. I've used a lot of Harbor Freight tanks over the years, and I like them because I can build them and replace them as I need them, but I use them every day. I really like these tanks because they've got such a better secured clamp on them than some of the others. And I've got California Airs, and I've got a couple of other off-brand ones. I've got a couple of 10-gallon tanks that are about this big around but only that tall, and I've got some that are this big around and this tall. And it all comes down to the project and what you need them for. So pressure pots are great. Starting out at 2.5 gallon is perfect for what you're going to need.
And before anyone asks, I just pasted the link to the pressure pot that John's talking about, the 2.5 gallon California Air.
Yep.
Pasted the link in the chat.
Yep. And if you buy like the Harbor Freight tank, it's actually something you're going to have to convert, right? It's not actually made for a pressure pot. It's made for spraying paint. So what you essentially get is a tank with a lid, and then you have to take all their fittings off and put all your fittings on it. So then you end up going to another hardware store to buy all the air fittings, to put a shutoff valve, a safety valve, a pressure gauge, and an air diverter, an elbow on the inside, so you're not blowing resin straight down into your mold, and so that all your resin comes out. You're blowing it around the tank. So another thing is I always fill my compressors, or I always fill my pressure pots very slowly. I don't just open them full blast and let the air in. So yeah, it's a lot of people. I know a lot of people like the Harbor Freight tanks. I've never had a problem with one. The biggest problem is this. There's been some negative feedback over the years. People say, oh, they blow up. And I know one person that had a problem with it, and I think it's probably the same person that we all know and have heard about. And what happened was he modified the tank so that it didn't get divots on top, because a Harbor Freight tank is much different than this one. These tanks are set up where the clamps rest on top of these ears. A Harbor Freight tank, the clamp rests up here on this groove. So as you tighten the clamp down, it's in the groove and it can't slide off because it's in the low spot. And somebody decided that eventually what happens is the clamps start to dig holes in the top of their tank. So they thought maybe if they welded a flat piece of steel on there, it would hold up longer, which is proper in thinking it would. But the problem is they lost that concaveness that the thread, the clamp went down in. So now all of a sudden it's a level flat spot, and the clamp was able actually to slip off. And so that's what happened under pressure. The clamp slipped off, and he had a failure. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. But it was a learning lesson for all of us, because he was very adamant to share, this is what I did and this is what I don't want to see anybody else do. So I've never had a pressure pot fail on me, but I will say this. If your pressure pot is well used like mine are, and it gets to the point where maybe the pressure gauge isn't moving like it should be, because you need to be watching that pressure gauge when you're putting air in. If it's not moving, replace it. If you got a lot of buildup, maybe your seals are starting to leak a little bit, replace it. It's not worth your safety, right? We're just making resin casts here. We don't want to get hurt. So err on the side of caution, get rid of the tank and replace it with something else if you feel there's a problem with it. So,
John,
looks like we
so
have
one question, John, in there that was in the list of stuff is, how did you get your original fittings off the Harbor Freight pot without tearing out all the threads?
pipe clamp or a pipe wrench. Yep, I just put a pipe wrench on it. The center pole is aluminum, and what's really cool about it is you can keep that aluminum rod and then turn it into pens if you want, because aluminum turns just great. So I've got a stack of aluminum rods that I'll use for pen turning. But yeah, everything else I made sure I matched my wrenches up to the openings, because a lot of your stuff, there's even the gauge is real hard to see, but down here it's a square head bolt down here. You're able to put a wrench on it and work it. But yeah, they've all got they've all got a thread lock on them for sealing it and holding everything tight, so you have to break that bond. It can be a little tricky. Anything else?
Not that I see at the moment. I think you're good. Keep going.
All right, so I want to do a pour real quick because this will show you guys how the resin works. It doesn't matter what you make. Everything when it comes to measuring, mixing, and pouring is going to be the same. You're just going to either have more resin or less resin, right? You're either going to use clear slow with a longer working time, or you're going to use clear or white. And I'm going to use white. That's the quickest stuff on the market. That way you don't have to wait hours to see the results. Unfortunately, I don't know if you'll want to cut it open or see.
Oh, sure.
What can we do here? So normally I would talk about molds first, but I wanted to get the pour in so you kind of understand what we're talking about when it comes down to it. So I always bring stuff that I suggest for molds, because when you're first starting out, you may not have a lot of money to invest in everything. Your resin alone is going to cost you anywhere, depending on what you're getting, anywhere from $60 to $100 a gallon. It's not a cheap hobby, and it's not getting any cheaper. As you evolve into this, you're going to start thinking, all right, well, what molds work best for me? Am I going to make a lot of this? Do I want to invest in a good commercial mold? And there's a lot of great commercial molds out there. But starting out, if you just want to play with resin, I'm going to show you in a few minutes all sorts of ideas and things that you can use that will get you started without a big investment. So in this case, we're going to use just this. It was a little sandwich container, and it's a number 5 recycling code. And I only picked it because it's nice and square. Of course, I don't know for a roller ball if it's wide enough, but it'll at least get the job done and show you what we're going to do with it. So a lot of people ask me, how do you know how much resin to use in a mold? A lot of your molds will, if you buy them commercially, will tell you how much resin will fit in them. But if you're using something recycled, or if you're using a mold with maybe a hybrid blank, you're not sure what you're going to need, so here's what I suggest. A lot of guys use rice, and rice works just great because it's really small. I use cherry pits because I buy this stuff in 50-pound bags and cast them, so it's just what I have laying around. So what I'm going to do is spill them all over Ed's shop and put them in this bowl.
You need our TV studio.
Yes, I'm going to spill these all over the studio. So basically it's this, right? You're going to fill your mold, regardless of what mold it is. You're going to fill it so that you know how much resin you need to fill that container. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your cups. Might be easier to do this first. And without spilling any more on the studio, except for those two, you're going to pour it in here. Now, you can look on the side of the cup and kind of see, all right, it says 2 cups. Another thing is, you can fill both of your cups. Of course, these need to be clean cups to do this. And then you get back here and you look at it until you get them kind of even. Now, there's all kinds of math that we can use to figure these out. Or we can just take a marker and we can draw a line. Now, I always draw the line just slightly above because these are large objects. So I only have to make a mark on the B cup. And my reasoning for that is, and experience has taught me, you always have less B in the cup. If you're using urethane resin, B weighs more than A. So if I know this is what I need in B, if I fill that, I'm going to weigh it. So we're going to start with B. Of course, I get to make a mess with this one. This is fine.
You got it.
Yeah. Come on. Oh, you know what? Safety first. Nitrile gloves. Nitrile, not latex. Latex will break down. You want nitrile. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour B in. And I'm going to pour it up to that line. I'm going to turn on my scale. Turning on the scale helps. All right. I got 9 ounces. Now, if I knew I wanted, say, 8 ounces, and I started out and I poured 9, here's the nice thing about using 2 separate containers. I can come back here and pour some back in the container, right? I don't have to just say, well, I'm stuck with it. And you know what? Let me see, how are we sitting there? Yeah, we're all right. So I like to do them in 2 separate cups because if I accidentally pour too much, I just pour it back in the container. It's not contaminated. It's not mixed already with the other. Then I take A. Now, like I said, I filled it to the line because I know that's where I need B. B's the heaviest. So I know there'll be less B, there'll be more A. So now what I'm going to do, like I said, I weigh this. I'm at 9. So now I know how much A to use because it has to be equal amounts of A and B. And the nice thing about this is you guys get to replay this as many times as you need down the road if you don't decide to cast resin for a month or two. Ooh, 9.7. See, there we go. 9.4. Jeez. All right, so now we match them by weight. And now that we know we have equal weight, we can get everything else out of our way. Take our mold release somewhere. Right here. Mold release. You don't need a lot of mold release, just a little bit. Now, as that dries, what I'm going to do is figure out what I want to do for color. Now, I can't use mica powders in white resin because when it cures, it starts out clear like this, but as it cures opaque white, so you're not going to see powder in it. So it has to be a liquid dye. Mica powders are for clear resin, not for white colored. They also have black and tan, and I've also used the black, which is a lot of fun around other objects. That way you don't have to tint your clear resin black. But you have to make sure you shake it up real good because sometimes it'll settle to the bottom of the container. So these dyes, there's so many different colors out there you get to play with. Geez. Let me find something that'll look good together. I will say this. A lot of your resin colors, your purple, your green, a little bit goes a long way. Even blue, a little bit goes a long way. But here's the tricky part. We don't know exactly what color this is going to wind up to be because the resin's going to turn white. So even though I may have a nice color when I stir it in there, as the resin cures and turns white, it's gonna kind of drown out that dark color that you have. I will say over the years, anytime I use green or orange dye, I always add yellow to it because it gives it just a brighter color. It makes that darker green look more of a true green. It makes that darker rusty orange look more of a vibrant regular orange. So what I also like to do is I like to take smaller cups, and these are number 5s also. They come from Kroger as well. It's the Elegant Plastic Cup, 9 fluid ounce, and I start out with a regular cup. I put my finger in it, and I bend a spout. You can't do that with all the cups. Some of them will crack and break. These large ones will break every time, so I have to warm them up if I bend a spout in them. But I like to do that with these cups because as I'm pouring it now, I can squeeze that and make the stream smaller, or I can just pour all and it'd be larger. As you start getting into casting, here's a few things you get to think about. If I have my 2 colors and I pour one this way, then I pour one that way, and then I pour back this way and that way, you're going to get a nice mix because you're going to cover that whole area with the same colors, and you're not going to have all blue on one side, all white or whatever on the other. But if you start playing around with it, then what you can do is I take aluminum flashing. I took 1 cup. I folded how I wanted. I took a pair of scissors and I cut it right down the middle, and I laid it down on my aluminum and traced that. And now I've got aluminum divider that I can drop in that cup, and I can put one color on one side and one color on the other and pour 2 colors at one time. So if I wanted maybe a predominantly white blank, but I wanted some green and yellow to swirl streams through it, I can have all white and green and yellow and be able to pour that, and all my colors move together at the same time and aren't separated or segregated in different areas of the blank. So it really comes down to what you want. For this, I'm just going to do a basic pour to kind of show you guys. So we'll do white in one, and then we'll do ocean blue in the other. Now, as you notice, I'm taking the caps off everything, and the reason for that is once I start mixing these resins, my working time begins. And the working time on the side of the bottle, working time, of course, the old label had it right on front. Last I checked, this stuff was about 2 minutes. 1 to 2 minute working time. Demold time, 10 minutes. That's pretty fast. So I can't spend all my time stirring this with a stick trying to get the color or trying to get A and B mixed properly, because a minute and a half, minute to 2 minutes working time is pretty short. And as you get doing this, you'll start playing around, and your self-challenge will be, how many colors can I pour at one time? And I've done 9. I don't do it a lot, but I've done 9 successfully. But that's moving pretty quick with everything laid out. And what you'll find out is the more colors you use, then you start putting your dyes in the cups before you pour your resin into them. So I usually spend too much time talking while I do this, and what I wind up with is resin that sets up in this before I pour it. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to do this real quick and give you an idea. And then I'll shoot a temperature and let you know. So as you see, I'm kind of looking over everything. Before I do a pour, I'm going to mentally go over everything and say, all right, I've got my mixing containers, I've got my cups, I've got my colors open, I've got my sticks to go in each container, I've got my digital thermometer. I'm going to take the lid off my pressure pot, and at home I would double check to make sure my compressor's plugged in and that it's got air in it, because I don't want to have to sit and wait for my compressor to kick in while my resin's curing, because then I'm going to wind up with a bunch of air bubbles.
Does the compressor have the right connector?
Yes, I tested it.
The connector is correct? It looked like it was the wrong one.
Nope, I tested it. I actually chambered it up to about 40 pounds before we
Just
started.
want to make sure we don't run into an issue.
Yep. Got the old handy drill. All right, so here's what we're going to start now. B's in the cup already. I'm going to pour A to it. Working time starts. And because it's colder out, shop rags, that's a must. Have shop rags. And that's it with a drill. How long do you think you stirred that by hand? All right. So I know this is going to cure white, but I'm also going to add white to it because I want it to be a brighter white.
You just answered a question without even seeing it. Good job.
Yeah? You know what? We're going to leave all of this in this one for a minute. So I'm going to add white to this one. I always add white to my white resin just to give it a little more brightness white.
That answers Treasure Maze's question. He asked, do you have to use the white dye and the white resin?
No, you don't have to. It just comes down to your individual preference. Now, these dyes break down really fast in this resin, so you really don't have to take a drill back to them. You just want to make sure that you stir all the edges, but that dye will break down really quick. And what's the worst case that can happen? I have white streaks in my blue resin. I'm going to have it anyhow. So All right, we're right now at 89, 90, 91, 90. Let's see this one. 91.6, 91.9, 92, 93.
All right.
That's how quick this stuff kicks. 95, 96. So that kind of gives you an idea of the resin quality. When it says it cures in 1 to 2 minutes, or working time is 1 to 2 minutes, we're at 100 degrees that fast. So I'm going to start out with some white and pour it around. What I like to do is, not pour it on the table. Sorry. That's why we have silicone mats. I try to alter my direction every time. I don't pour the same direction twice unless that's what I'm going for, like tiger stripes. There's going to be a lot of blue in this one, I can tell. But here's other things we can do, right? We could pour all of it in here and then pour all of it at one time. We can lay a stick across it, pour over it. You know what? I'm going to leave this out here. I want you guys to see it cure. We're not going to worry about air bubbles. Dingo, can you zoom in on that?
So, John, one thing I noticed that I've seen other people talk about is swirling it after you've done it.
We're at 132. So you have the option to go in and swirl it, but I'll be honest with you, I've seen guys that I feel they over swirl it. You've seen I pour it in different directions every time, so that moves the resin enough. If you start to swirl it, like, guys will do that, come in, whatever. In my opinion, I feel like it starts to take away from some of the resin character. I've been, depending on the colors, but there's such a thing as overworking this resin. And I feel like I've overworked it just doing the little bit that I've done. But I want you guys to see, as this kicks, you'll start to see the white come through. Let's see the temperature we're at. 149, 150 degrees.
So John, David Lang says the viscosity seems less than what he normally would see with Alumilite Clear Slow at around 100 degrees. Is it typical?
This is pretty typical, other than it's been sitting next to a cold door. So, I mean, you can see this now, right? As it goes. And this stuff, I mean, it's pretty typical for what I'm used to. We're at 160. Still slowly climbing, but roughly 162. So as you can see, it got lighter in color. That's because of the white resin itself. As it cures, it turns white. So you've really got to play around with your colors and what kind of results you're going to get. Now it's more like rubber. And that's how quick a lot of this stuff goes. When you're doing color casts, you really have to have everything set up and ready, because once it kicks, you're at the mercy of the resin. There's nothing else you can do.
Just as a sense check, we're at 735.
All right. So that's 169 degrees. Let me put the cap on these. Normally, I would put this in a pressure pot, and I would let it cure for 10 minutes, maybe 15. Of course, in my shop, I would have moved on and done 3 more pours and 2 other tanks, and 2 more pours, and then come back and open this. And that's what I do. Is I start at one side and work my way across, so that every 15 minutes I'm opening the first tank, dumping it out, doing a pour, and going to the next one. It kind of takes the fun out of it, though, when you do that much at one time. But it's a lot of fun when you're playing with colors, because you really get to see what's there.
So question for me, John, more than from the rest of the crew, but I bet you they'd be asking too. This is going to cure fast enough that by the time the show ends, we could have Ed run over and cut it on the saw and show us the inside, right?
You could, but here's the problem. I didn't put it under pressure because I wanted you to see how quickly it cures and how it changes. But yeah, we can have Ed cut it open.
Cool.
All right. So that's white, right? The only difference between white and clear is the clear has a longer working time and it doesn't turn white. So you get to use mica powders and all that fun stuff. Now, one of the drawbacks, like I talked about before, one of the major drawbacks with color casting is you have to wait for resin to reach a certain temperature. If I were using clear, we would have stood here for a few minutes and waited for that resin to hit about 110 degrees before I were to pour it. With white, it gets to temperature very quickly, so there's less time waiting. And I love to turn white. I think it's a smoother resin than anything else. I love the smell of it. I don't know why. I love the smell of it. But it really all comes down to what the job is, what the project is, right? What are you trying to make? And the difference between color casting and clear casting, you mix the resin the same, you measure it, mix it the same. The only difference is you're going to pour clear resin as soon as it's fully mixed. You don't wait for it to reach temperature because you want to get it in the mold at its thinnest state. You're not trying to add character. You're not trying to add any swirls because you're not going to see them. It's clear resin. You just want to make sure you get it in there so that it has time to get around whatever you're casting over in a clear cast tube. So if that makes sense. Yes, so if you're going to use Pearl X, mica powders, this kind of stuff, any type of powder, you have to use clear resin. You can't use white, black, tan, any of that stuff, because you're not going to see it. I had an example. It's over here maybe. Yeah. No, it's gone. That's in a box somewhere. You're not going to see it. But this stuff, it's a powder, right? It comes out, it floats around. You're going to find it. Ed's going to be custom. He's going to find this in his studio for the next couple days. He's going to lean on something and cuss my name because he's just got blue mica on him.
I won't see it with all the rest of the dust on me.
But that's it. Mica powders are just that. They're powders, so you can't use them in a clear or in a white resin. Let's see. Somebody's having a lag issue.
Yeah.
So, what's nice about these mats, though, is, of course, a little bit of resin doesn't cure as quickly, but as you can see, a lot of this will just clean right up. Once it's cured, it just peels right off. So obviously that's not ready to be peeled off. I can see it. It's still syrupy. But resin in a thicker state generates more heat and cures quickly. Resin in a thinner state like this will take a little bit longer because it doesn't generate the heat as quickly because there's less of it. So just remember that. Larger volumes of resin will create more heat quicker and get to that resin point where you need to be pouring it faster than a smaller cup or a thinner area. So while that's kind of doing its thing, I don't want to get any resin or anything else. Let's talk about molds. Molds are very important, right? So obviously, everybody knows I cast feathers. I do some labels. I do a little bit of snakes, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm a guy, I just like to create. I like to play around with it, see what I can come up with. And so anytime I do a clear cast, I'm going to use a vertical rack. If I'm casting a handle like I did in the ice cream scoop, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my 1.5 inch vertical casting rack. The nice thing about it, it's a clear tube. It's got a cap that goes in top, and all the top cap does is keep the integrity of the circle, right? The tube. The bottom cap holds the resin from coming out. And I also know that when I'm all done with this, that I can take a pair of channel lock pliers and pull these off and reuse them. The caps, they last forever. And I've got a blank.
You developed this system how long ago? Because I know I picked it up in 2013. I
So-
had one of your prototypes.
So, to answer your question, a little bit of history on the vertical casting rack. This is the original vertical casting rack that came on the market. This size was brought to the market by Ed and Dawn here at Exotic Blanks. But my initial casting rack is 36 holes. They're 7/8 tubes, and the reason I like 7/8 is a couple reasons. One, I can cast every tube size for every pen that's on the market and not have to change this tube. The other is if by some chance as resin cures, it doesn't always cure at the same time. So this side of the tube may solidify a little quicker than this side. So it's not uncommon for the tube to be pressed over. And even though it's 7/8, if this is out of whack on top, by the time you pull the plug out, there's still enough resin to be turned down and it doesn't ruin the blank. So I like 7/8. It also allows me to cast things like cactus or sweet gum pods or whatever. And what I would do is I make sure they fit the tube. If they don't, I'll put this on the lathe and sand it down a little bit so that it fits. And if I have to, take a skewer, press it in on the side just to wedge it in place and cut that off with wire cutters. Now I know that it's not going to slip up and slide out of the top. So the 36-inch casting rack, actually, I think I made my first one in around 2009. And I know since 2009, there's been several copies of that. Every time I look online, somebody's selling a version of the vertical casting rack that's been out since, well, I think 2010 is when it actually started coming out. But I made it out of necessity because I needed something to cast a lot of blanks at one time. And so for me, I wanted to be able to cast 36 vertical Sierras or tubes at one time, and this fits in the pressure pot. So the 18-hole, that's more for the guys that are just making blanks for themselves. Most people aren't going to need to cast 36 at a time, but for me, I like it because I can get a lot more done at one time. The worst part about this, and I will tell you, the only flaw that I can think of, because my first one started out made out of plywood. And I built it out of plywood, and after years, 3 or 4 years of using it, I started to see a buildup on all the shelves of it, and the holes were starting to get a little smaller, the openings, because of all the vapors and the resin that had been spilled on them over the years. So I knew I had to do something different because plywood wasn't just going to cut it anymore. So I went to HDPE, and the biggest flaw with that is anybody that buys one will never have to buy another one, right? This is the business that basically says, in today's world, when you buy something, you don't expect it to last. You expect to buy something and then 4 or 5 years later, 6 years, whatever, replace it because it's gotten old, wear and tear. I'm using some of the first HDPE racks that I built, 15 years ago, and they work just fine. So I use it because it works for me. It came to market at Exotic Blanks because people were asking me, hey, where can I get one? And I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to make any more. I got tired of making them for myself, and thankfully, Ed has brought the rest to market, and thankfully, because it's a great thing, right? The problem is now I see people that are making them, they're selling them out of wood, they're selling them out of cutting boards, they're selling them out of 3D printed racks, and that's all great if you only want to use it a couple times. The problem is cutting boards, which get hard and brittle and crack, along with filament, you can't clean it off. My wood one, I couldn't scrape the resin off without damaging the wood. So the HDPE is the only thing that's impervious to the resin, and I can pick this resin off all day long, and when I'm done, it's clean again because it flakes off after it gets dry.
It's actually kind of fun to do.
It is satisfying once in a while. It's kind of ridiculously satisfying to just pick resin off the racks. But like I said, to each their own. I know my racks are going to last me a lifetime, and I work with 4 of them at home right now, and I've never had to replace them. I can throw it on the floor. I can step on it. I can spill resin over it. If I have to, I take it apart and pull the resin off after it hardens. It's good to go. You can't do that with those other materials. They just don't hold up. So the other thing is I like these clear tubes. I like the clear tubes because, like I said, they're easy enough to use. It's pennies on the dollar. I can come out with a pair of scissors, and this is what I do. I'll have these tubes, and I keep one that says keep, and I know this is the length I need for all of my Sierras, Cigars, and Juniors. And so I just hold it next to here and cut it off with scissors. Don't worry about it. Cut it off with scissors, and now I know I've got the sleeve, the length that I need, and I pop the caps on them. What's nice about this rack is I like the fact that I can actually do tube-on clear casting with it. So I can put tubes in there. I'm not just refined to doing color casts. I actually have bases, Delrin bases, that I can do tube on casting. So I like to do that. It's great for color casting as well. And again, I showed some versions earlier, that it all depends on what you want to do with them. Pens are great with it, but I also like to do the bottle stoppers and the handles. And that's where the 1.5 inch comes in handy, because I can cut it to whatever length I need. And that was my duck call blank. That's going to be a bottle stopper out of scrap resin that I had. And that was my ice cream scoop handle. So at this point, it just comes down to the imagination. If you're doing wood inlays, these are great tubes also for making inlays, because now you can slice this off and just use them to embed your inlays. So besides that, like I said, there's a lot of commercialized racks out there. I can't read that far.
I got it.
Oh, yeah. So there's a lot of things out there that you can use other than these. And I see a lot of guys using things like this, PVC. And I started out using PVC back around, PVC was big around 2006, 2008. That's when everybody was trying to figure out what are we going to cast stuff in. And my experience that I found out is PVC is great for the first, maybe second or third time. But the problem after that is PVC surfaces, if you ever felt them, they don't stay smooth all the time, right? They start to break down. That inner wall starts to lose its slickness because of the heat generated in the resin. So eventually you start to get a texture in there that basically just isn't smooth anymore. And then what you find out is later you're back here with a hammer trying to pound a dowel rod into your blank to knock it out the bottom. And if it works for you, go with it. It never worked for me.
I remember when I first started doing pepper mills, and I did a couple because they had the 3-inch PVC, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then what I wound up having to do by the second or third time is taking it over to my bandsaw and cutting it, rolling it on the other side, cutting it, and then splitting it off.
Right.
Because you think it's going to last forever, and it lasts 2 casts at best.
I mean, I know guys that use it every now and then, but the problem is I found I was always replacing my PVC tubes. I used them enough that after a few times, then I was going back to the store to buy more PVC to cut it and use it. It works. It's just how hard do you want to work at using it? I use this PVC coupler to make a bowl blank, small bowl blank. But what I will tell you is I didn't use this exact one because the first one I poured it in, I was trying to demold it. And when I took it off the base and was trying to force it out, I broke it because it held on. And I used mold release. I turned that inner lip off. I put it in my chuck, turned the inner lip off, and then I basically, and I'll go over this in a second, but I basically hot glue it down to a board, and there's my mold. Pour it in. So it can be done, but it might be a one-time shot for the larger stuff. And the problem is with the smaller stuff, I could have lined this with tape, and it would have came out much easier. You can't line them pen blank tubes with tape to get them to come out. So, again, try what you think is going to be best for your setup, and if it works for you, go with it. I just don't like PVC because I always felt I was always fighting it, trying to get the blanks out of the mold. So, mold-wise, we've got a lot of possibilities, and obviously, the easiest one are the commercial molds. Right? You can buy blocks. There's guys out there making fantastic molds. You can buy blocks all day long, silicone, and there's much better silicone molds out there than this one. I brought this one only because a lot of times if you use a silicone mold, I want you to know that you may have to build a wooden mother mold or use a caddy to get it in and out of the tank, because when you pick this stuff up, they start flexing on you. So you don't want to be spilling your resin. Another thing I wanted to kind of hit on is this was one of the first silicone molds I bought. I think I bought it around 2006, 2007. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I just wanted to pour pen blanks. I just wanted to play. And I didn't realize till after I got it and I started using larger bowl molds that I'm very restricted on how much character I can add to these areas. So I like them for making these thin line blanks. What it allows me to do is pour a black blank, set my table saw, rip a groove. There you go. Thank you, Dean. Rip a groove on a thin kerf blade and then throw it back in here and then pour whatever color I need in there. But you're very limited to just back and forth or length to length, right? You can't add a lot of swirl or character to a blank because you're very limited by how much space you have. So when it comes to a pen blank, something like these, I like to use a block because it allows me to manipulate my character a little more.
One nice thing on having those though is that if I'm pouring something bitter like a peppermint,
And you have leftover resin?
Sorry,
Yes.
are you gonna get to that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, they are great for if you're pouring something large and now you've got just a little bit of resin left. If you've got enough resin to fill it, you can do that. Another thing I like to use, I'll use just a short tube and pour a Sierra, depending on how much resin. If I don't have enough left to pour a full chamber of that blank, I'll just pour a short little Sierra. And then I just pop these caps off later and reuse them on the next one. So there's a lot of commercial molds out there. And a lot of guys ask me, what mold should I get? And I'll be honest with you, your mold choice comes down to how much you're going to use it and what you're going to cast. If you're going to cast a lot of something, then I say invest in a nice mold. If you're going to just pour a couple of this and a couple of that, well, then you have the option of either making a mold or using something recycled. So when I talk about something recycled, we talk about this kind of stuff. Pop cans work great. They're a one-time shot. You're only going to use it once because then you're going to cut it, peel it off, use pliers to pull it off because they get sharp edges. But you're going to get, a handle blank out of it if you want. It might be a little overkill because it's a little large, but all this stuff comes in handy. All your food containers, especially anything that comes out of the dairy aisle, they're all like number 5s. They work very well. I used to use a lot of the Yoplait stuff because then I would pour bottle stoppers. You can use cardboard. Just know that you really want something that has a good seal on it, and what's got better seal than Pringles because they don't go bad in the can. So you can pour blanks out of a Pringles can. Just know that it's probably going to be a one-shot use. You're going to have to cut this to get it off. And I'll be honest with you, I cast this in a different cup and cut it off, and I then use this can just to prove a point for a demo because they're not real easy to demold or put back in the can, as you can see. But you can have some fun with it.
But the paint's great.
Can shrunk.
Yes, and again, it all depends on what you're casting, but for your larger stuff, you guys want to make lidded boxes of stuff, cottage cheese containers, sour cream, all the stuff that you've already bought it, so why not use it? And they're all reusable. Let your resin cure, let it cool off, they'll fall right out of that stuff, and then you can reuse them again.
If it's okay to interrupt, the other thing that those like cottage cheese containers and stuff work well with is if you have a wild chunk of worthless wood that you want to put in there.
Yeah,
Almost something that looks like a root ball or something.
Yep.
You put it in there and just pour it all
Wedge
over.
something in it. Just be careful of what floats.
Yes.
And if you have kids, you can sneak things that you're tired of cleaning the mess up, like the Play-Doh that you find on the kitchen table or the floor, and you're tired of it, so it disappears. But you keep the canister because then you can just throw something in it and make a bottle stopper mold. Pill containers. I've found as I get older, I have more of these. So the ones that are larger, I'll use them. Some of these tall ones are great for Sierras. You don't have to invest a ton of money starting out to make something. Just know that you're going to turn this off. Your blank, it's going to be hard to demold. Or if you have a hole in the bottom, and that's what I did with this. I poured a hole because I actually cast a bunch of dandelions in these. But I turned it over and I put a small hole in it and I popped it out and then I just covered it with some hot glue to reuse it.
Yeah, those are really cheap. They're only $100 for the pills that are out.
Yeah, exactly. Here's how I feel. My insurance company that buys this stuff for me, they really want me to stay busy. So doggone it, I'm going to try. One of my favorite molds, and I use it all the time, Betty Crocker frosting. I love this size. It is just a great size. Whoa. I haven't seen you move that fast in a long time. like a cat, man. You were on your game.
You tell us frosting over here, and
But-
we're moving.
But you can have a lot of fun with these if you want to zoom in on that, Dean, and just kind of they can see the character. And all I did was throw a bunch of pine cones this way. Throw a bunch of pine cones in there and drizzle my colors over the top. And the nice thing about embedded objects, they actually add the character for you. All you have to do is keep alternating your colors, and that was blue, green, and gold. So the nice thing is it pops right out. It's easy to use, and I already paid for it. So I get to keep using it. You guys into 3D casting, you probably recognize this, the filament. When you run a filament spool down, it's a great mold. So if you're going to make something short and wide, or you want a jar lid, or you want to make another big inlay, it's perfect. And all you're going to do is take some clear packing tape or some tuck tape. And I first started out with tuck tape because it works great. And all you're going to do is basically tape the bottom shut. Flip it over and pour your resin in it. What's easier than that? Put a little bit of tape on it. Tuck tape works awesome. I started using some of this clear U-line. It's a little thicker packing tape. This works very well as well. It doesn't hold up to the heat as well as the tuck tape does, but it's a lot more affordable. But then you can get stuff like this out of it, right? You can just have fun. Leftover resin, mix some colors into it, and now I can part that off and use that either as a jar lid, an inlay, or maybe, I don't know, maybe make a bangle bracelet out of it.
This
Obviously,
is going to be a demo coming up in a couple months.
it definitely will. Larger stuff. Go ahead, Dean.
So a couple things real quick. So you did talk about your spool center there. I linked into the link. Everybody should go check out your latest video with the 3D printed mold. That was pretty cool. So you'll be able to see that in detail, how you deal with a 3D printed mold. But the combination of those things, somebody asked, what filament do you use on your 3D printed molds?
That's PLA. PLA. And here's the trick with PLA. It's a little early, so I'll get to it real quick. I'm just going to show you. One of the cheapest molds you'll get is the cup at the dollar store. Great for making little lid boxes or whatever. Pops right out of the cup. It's reusable. It's almost like they want you to pour resin in it. And one of the easiest blanks, which is great for something taller like a pepper mill. This was the Armor All hand wipes. And all I did was cut the top off. And I took the existing lid and I turn it upside down and pop it in. And that just holds the integrity of the cup. But you can get stuff. This was pasta noodles cast in white resin. The hand towels for the goop, that's going to be a large sphere. I just haven't brought myself to the courage to do it yet, but I took a piece of cherry burl and I clear casted it, but I put a little bit of red tint to it, so it's kind of a red tint resin around the cherry burl, and it's about that deep, and I actually left that at home, but something like that works great because it's large and you can pour it as deep as you need it if you wanted something bigger, and it's HDPE because it holds solvent. So when it comes to, one more real quick, commercial stuff, I went to Target and I bought one of these little containers. I don't even know what Target sells them for, if it was something for just putting on your desk or food, but there wasn't a lid to it. But what I did was I took 2 pieces of maple and I put them in there, and I used these little wedges that I cut and just wedged on each side around them to hold them in place. That way when I poured the resin, they didn't float out. And then you start getting stuff like this. So if your mold, you're looking for something smaller, maybe you just need to pour 2 of what you need and cut it, pour 1, cut it in half, and now you have 2, one for now, one for later. So filament. I started 3D printing stuff a little while ago because I couldn't find the container to the right dimensions that I wanted. And the nice thing about it is you can print them round or you can print them square, right? And for this case, I thought I brought that little bowl, but I guess I didn't, did I? No. So in this one, I thought I'd make a platter, a small bowl, but I wanted it see-through. So what I did was I basically took a small piece of wood and I covered it with this packing tape. And then I lay my mold down and I go all the way around the edges with a hot glue gun. So I warm it up And I just work my way all the way around it, and I kind of put some downward pressure on it so that it cures hard against the surface. Because if you give it slack and it rises up on you, you're going to have gaps and your resin's going to spill out. So I hold it down, run my beads. I hold it there just for a minute or so to let the hot glue cure and dry, cool off so that it doesn't stay stringy. Once it's done, I'm good to go. But basically,
And the hot glue does stick to like tuck tape and stuff too.
sticks to everything, yep. And it also comes off nicely. So I also put a little bit of hot glue on my bottom pieces of wood, and I stuck them in my mold down to the bottom. And once I knew those were good and hot, I mixed up my resin and I poured them in. So now I've got probably going to turn a little square platter, a little square plate out of this, maybe a little wing to it, and you'll be able to see through it to see all the little crevices in the burl around the edge. But as you can see, those are the spots from the glue, but it pops off the tape real nice, and it just a little bit of transparency because as my resin, if it were just clear, as it aged, it would get dingy. So if I put a little bit of blue in there, it kind of looks more like water, and you won't see any discoloration in the resin. So when it was cured, I basically popped it off the bottom. Because I lined this mold with tuck tape, my resin comes right out of it. And I did the same with this, only I used clear packing tape. And this is the mold that I just used in the video for the golf tees that I cast for another guy to turn. And basically it was the same thing. I took a board. First I tape the inside. I tape it back and forth. I stick the piece of tape in, smooth it out. And in the video I show exactly how I do it. I hold it down, I hot glue it, filled it full of golf tees, mixed up my epoxy resin, poured it in because golf tees don't stick to urethane resin, which I found it on the first pour. So, hey, we're learning.
It wasn't a failure.
It wasn't a failure, right? I learned what didn't work. So I'm taking just little 1/4-inch scrap pieces of wood, and I'm hot gluing my mold down like I did on this one. And something like this, I would take this block. It's already stabilized Buckeye. It's got a nice little shape to it. I know it'll fit inside the box just perfect. I'm going to put a couple pieces of hot glue squeezed down the bottom. I'm going to push it down inside the chamber. I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to measure the resin. I'm going to mix it, and I'm going to pour it exactly like we did on this block, and then put it in the tank, and you're going to pop it out, and you're going to get your resin hybrids. So somebody had asked Ed, they'd reached out and said, how do I cast a pepper mill? Mark loves this part. How do I cast a pepper mill blade? So again, we have a couple options, right? If you have Armor All, also as you notice, I wrote on my containers 10 ounces of A and B. That way, if I use this again, I've got writing on it, so I remember exactly how much I need. I can obviously fill it up with rice or cherry pits again, but I don't need to because I wrote it down. So I can do this if I want, depending on the size of the pepper mill, if it's going to be a little shorter. But if I want something taller, this is what I got to do. So here's how I approach this project. I've got these corner pieces of burl. Now I could cast it round, but if I'm going to do that, I've got to round this off so that it fits nicely in a mold. And honestly, sometimes it's just easier to put it in a square mold and turn it around later. So what I done, and again, Ed and Dawn sell molds for all of this stuff. There's molds out there on the market for all of this stuff. So if you're going to do something a lot, I suggest break down and buy the mold. It's worth it in the long run. If you're going to do a couple, like what I'm doing, I 3D print these, and these are 6 inches. So what I know is I can meet these on end if it's a 12-inch pepper mill. And all I have to do is tape this together with my tuck tape or my clear packing tape. And I'm using a heavy clear pack tape, remember. So I'm going to line the inside first on both of these. I'm going to hold this down here, and I'm going to see where it fits. Well, clearly this is going to be more like, 10 inches. So instead of leaving it all the way out here, I'm just going to slide these together. And now I'm not wasting a bunch of resin on the ends that I'm going to cut off, right? So I'm able to slide these together. Once I get them together, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape these. Inside, I'm going to tape the seam so resin can't get underneath of it. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to hot glue it down to another piece of wood that I've already covered with tape. Once I get it all hot glued down, I'm going to put a little hot glue on the bottom of this, drop it in my mold, and hold it there. Let it harden, let it cure itself so that it's not moving, because you don't want your wood to float out. And wood will float in resin. Once I know that that's all good to go, I'm going to go to my Alumilite Clear Slow. Because it's a large block, I need the resin to cure slowly so that it doesn't crack. I'm going to measure it with my rice or beans or whatever dry goods you want to use so that you know how much resin to use. Dump it in even cups, mark it. Then I know I'm going to start with B, fill it to the line, measure it or weigh it on the scale, and match that weight with A. It's not a bad idea to add maybe a little extra. That way you know, just in case, you'd rather have a little extra than not enough. So once that I know that yes, Dean.
If I could interject for a second here, just to make sure, that was a good question for SHS coaches. Asked that question. How do you approximate the amount of resin for irregularly shaped lumber? And that's exactly what you just described, is right? There you go. Those guys.
I would take these after my mold is completely constructed, whichever mold I'm using. I would pour the dry goods in here and then dump it out. Measure them in 2 separate cups so I know equal amounts, and then draw a line on the cup and fill it up to that with B. And that's the easiest way to do it. And again, it's not a bad idea to add a little extra because sometimes it's just going to be off a little. So once I know I've got everything down, I'm going to warm this wood up. So the biggest problem I see with a lot of people when they start casting is they forget, even though this is dry, this is wood turning dry, it's not resin dry. Resin needs 0 moisture. Epoxy will hold up to moisture a little bit better than urethane. Silmar will hold up to water even better than epoxies. But urethane resin, which I like to use, especially on large stuff, it needs to be dry. So what I will do is I'll put this in the oven. I'll set the oven at 2 1/4, and I'll let it sit there for a couple of hours. Now, I know I bought it dry. It's all good to go. But I want to make sure that any humidity that this wood may have absorbed, I don't want it still there. So when it comes out of the oven, I'm going to put it in a bag or a box, whatever, and I'm going to let it cool off. Or just turn the oven off if I'm not in a hurry and just let the oven come down to temperature to where it's room temperature. But I don't want to just pull this out and set it on the counter, because now I've just ruined every warming technique that I've done, because now it's started to absorb more humidity. So I want to basically control the atmosphere around this. I don't want to allow it to absorb any more humidity than it's going to.
And I always think the drier the better.
I don't.
No, the drier the better.
Only when we're talking about wood.
No, the drier the better.
The Dwyer?
Drier. The drier.
Get it?
So once we know we've got our resin mixed, it reaches the temperature that we want, we're going to pour it. We're going to put it in the pressure pot. Now, because I use Clear Slow, it needs 2.5 to 3 hours to cure. So I'm going to let it go 3 hours. And then we're going to pull it out of the tank. So, yeah, like watching Julia Childs, isn't it? Like, bam!
Oh, you're not drinking.
Yeah. Okay. So now that it comes out of the pressure pot, we've got our blank, right? There's the wood that the mold was glued down to. We've got everything inside. So now we have to demold it. And I cast this yesterday and I haven't touched it. So we can either pound on this and shake it off. But usually what I like to do is come in here and break this glue seam. And I'll use a screwdriver. Yeah, put this. I know I got a lot of junk on the table. But I'll take a screwdriver and I'll pop this glue seam. And as you can see, the glue gives out. The tape gives out, I should say. And my plywood's pretty crappy, so it's going to delaminate, but that's all right. It was free. So we take the board off, and now I've got this blank, and I know I had a razor blade, but I'll use scissors. So normally what I like to do also is try to get some of this glue off if I can. because the glue is kind of holding the mold all together. But I've also got tape on the inside, so that might be a problem. There we go. The nice thing about the glue is once you start it, it usually peels off pretty easily. So basically what this allows us to do, because I allowed this to, because I allowed this to cool off, had I done this when the mold was still hot, I would have disfigured all of this PLA and you wouldn't be able to use it again. But because we let it cool off first, now I used a lot of tape on this, which is evident inside here. There we go. Yeah, I'm getting tape on the blank. There we go. So I can reuse this again. Just hot glue it back down to a new piece of wood because this one kind of gave out on me a little bit. But basically, that's where it's at. And now we've got this peppermill blank that we can turn down to size and
Or give it to a friend.
and this one I'm giving it away. I'm giving it to somebody that asked if I had any peppermill blanks. So I'm gonna finish this one up, trim it up, clean it up a little nicer, but basically be a hybrid peppermill blank. So the bottom line is I just wanted to show you that if you're just starting out, you don't have to run out and buy everything that everybody on YouTube or Facebook is talking about or telling you to get. You can start slow, you can figure out what you like, and then go from there. There's plenty of ways. If you don't have a 3D printer, and I didn't when I started, this is what I did. I took scrap pieces of wood, I lined every piece with tuck tape, and then I screwed them together, and I made a box. Once everything is together, I also tape my edges. That way it acts as a gasket. When I put these pieces together, it's tape on tape. And then I just go around, put my screws in, and I'm just using drywall screws, something cheap. And basically, now you've got a mold. Now, nothing says you can't make the mold pen blank size, you can't make it bowl size, whatever you're going to do, whatever your project is, you can use scrap wood. You don't have to go elaborate on something. Another option, if you've got something that you need and they just don't sell a mold for it, but you want something that's going to last a long time, is make your own. And for instance, with this one, it was the same principle. I made basically a mother mold of what I was going to cast. So I started out, the center block of wood is basically the void that I want in my mold. And unfortunately, I didn't bring this mold. I grabbed the wrong one. But it was the same technique. I created basically a block that fit this hole. And then I put it inside, and I created the gap for the walls, which is this. And then I drew a line in here on how deep I wanted to pour it. And I used the tuck tape, and I poured it in there. And I actually put this in a vacuum tank and sucked the air out of the red mold maker, the silicone. You don't have to. This stuff is so easy to use that it's almost too pliable. But in this case, I wanted to make a blank because I was casting some blocks. And these blocks were going to be used for cutting them in half and then turning them into Easter eggs. So basically, this is the block that I would get by using this mold. And then I just cut them in half, and then you get to see the character inside. So again, you can't really tell what's going on outside of a mold, right? But the minute you cut them open, you get to see all the character. So you can't really judge a cast like a book. You can't judge it by its cover. So
John, Sarah asks, can we show the live cast again? Has it changed color anymore?
no, it's where it's at, right? And here's the thing: it's just gotten very light colored. once it solidifies, it doesn't continue to get lighter. It just hits that point where that's what it's going to be. And the nice thing is then you just pop it out. So there's the blank. And if Ed wants to just cut it in half, whack on it right in the middle. Or a couple places, see what you got with it. I don't have any expectations of that really looking like anything because I manipulated it more to show you what I usually don't do, but I see a lot of people doing, and we'll see what it looks like. But really...
Gonna be noisy.
All right, fire it up.
Okay, while it's being noisy there, I'm going to start up and get it set up. I turned off your sound, John. They can't hear you. I'm going to set us up for the final drawing. In chat, we're going to have you put in this time the word resin. I'll put it in there as well.
Blind Hog finds an 8.
Okay, your volume is back on. I've got them
All right.
typing resin for the next drawing.
Awesome.
I want to show that. I'll go to the other camera.
So Ed just cut it apart. Here's the character we get in it. And as you can see, the blue's a little bit lighter. I don't know what I can do to help you there, but the blue's a little bit lighter than what the original pour was because the white takes over. But you can at least see the character that you get. And I like to pour, again, every direction, right? I don't pour the same direction over and over. I always alternate my directions, every color that I pick up and pour. And if I'm only doing a 2-color pour, I like to pour each color at least 3 times. If I'm doing, say, a 3 or 4-color pour, I want to pour each color at least twice. So I try to ration my resin as I go. I was going to show this earlier, and this is basically how I poured this little bowl. Just to kind of give you guys an idea. So this is from the paint aisle at the local hardware store. And I had a elm tree or ash tree come down in the backyard. So I just took a limb off of it. I rounded the ends so that way it sets inside real nice. And I poured my resin over the top of it. And then that's how I basically got this little bowl that has the limb. It actually raised up on me a little bit, floated up more than I wanted to. I wanted it a little lower. And I could have flipped it over, I guess, and done it the other way. But I think it worked out just fine for, what I had to work with for a cheap piece of limb that fell in the storm down back and in a paint mixing cup. So that's the kind of stuff you can do with literally no supplies, right? A paint mixing cup, a scale, and some resin in a pressure pot. So I'm trying to think if I overlooked anything or forgot anything, but like I said, the main thing is if you're just getting out there, play around with the resins. There's plenty of recyclable things out there. Every time I do a demo at the MPG, people come up afterwards and say, I'm never going to look at the grocery store the same. Because I do that. I walk down an aisle and I'm constantly thinking, I wonder what that would look like in resin. I bet I could cast that. Hey, I wonder what that would be like for a mold. Don't be afraid to experiment. Pour over things, through things, just have a good time with it. Dean, have we got a winner?
Not yet. I'm going to pick 2 this time because they told me to pick 3 total, so we're going to pick 2 this time. What's funny, I do have to say, somebody commented, and I didn't see, somebody's got really good eyes that I didn't see, but at some point early on, somebody said, I can't wait to see him cast the bag of cereal behind him. Do you actually have a bag of cereal over there?
It's cherry pits.
It's the cherry pits.
I've cast
funny.
cereal. Yeah, it's the cherry pits.
I know you have.
I've cast Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Puffs, Fruit Loops. You name it. I've cast a lot of cereal. I've cast a lot of oatmeal. I've probably cast every box of dry goods in the pasta aisle. There's probably very few things that I haven't poured resin over, even down to the sawdust off the shop floor. But again, I've been casting for almost 20 years. So, part of the fun about casting is just experimenting. And so for me, it wasn't so much as wanting to come up with something maybe that looked awesome, just something that looked different. And that's where I've gone. I know a couple years ago, I was in a craft store, and a woman, as I'm walking out, the woman asked me, "Is there something I can help you with?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm just looking at all your stuff. I was just looking to see if there was anything in there that I could pour resin over." And as I walked out, there's a display of locally grown popcorn. And what I liked about it was all the popcorn was different colors. It was all these nice, cool colors. And so I'm looking at this popcorn, and she goes, "Oh, you're going to love that stuff." And I said, I think I'll take a bag. So I bought a bag of popcorn, and she said, "Do me a favor, come back and tell me if you liked it or not." So I went home, and I dried it in the oven because I didn't want to pop it, but I dried it slowly in the oven. I washed it in some denatured alcohol, and then I wound up casting resin over it, and I turned her a pen, and I took it back, and I said, "It's the best popcorn I've ever bought." And she was just flabbergasted. She couldn't believe it. She's like, "You didn't eat it?" So I have cast popped popcorn also. I like to do that in a clear cast, and then I reverse paint it black so that the popcorn stands out, which is kind of cool too. But you use a lot of CA to seal it as you're turning it down. So
Terry's got a question that he asked super early.
Yeah.
And I said to hold on to it. I wasn't sure if we'd cover enough, if it would still fit. And he did bring the question back. And it almost doesn't feel rated PG to say it out loud, but I'm going to say it anyway. Terry asks, can you use a vibrator to help fill casting pine cones, acorns, etc., to help fill the voids?
Yeah, you can. There's been ultrasonic cleaners and stuff people have used over the years that vibrate and shake, these trays that you can buy, and it helps move the air out a little quicker. I'll be honest with you. I would suggest, if nothing else, keep your resin down to maybe 1 or 2 colors. Pour it while it's very thin. Don't wait for it to get up to 95 to 100 degrees. Pour it around 85 to 90 degrees and then get it under pressure. If it's a tall mold and it's taller, a lot of times I'll use a mold. I might only pour resin up to here, but I've got a little room, so I'll do this back and forth and tilt it, and it kind of helps move resin in places, or especially with walnut shells. It just helps get resin in some of them hard to reach spots. But yeah, a lot of guys use the ultrasonic vibration trays when they're using polyester resin. And I never resorted to that. I just worked around it and always and had good results. So, but it is something that they use. I see someone's giving away sweet gum balls.
If they want to see this demo live, where will they be able to see it?
So I may do some form of this, elaborate more on it, but yes, we'll be talking more and doing more on things like this at the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering. So,
and when is that? April 17th and 18th?
April 17th and 18th in Hoffman Estates. And I know Dean earlier posted, I believe, a link to the MPG.
I can repost it again. Yep.
Dean will repost it again. And
you want to give a kind of a quick overview? I mean, you'll also get to meet Ed and Dawn and what other vendors.
So I will say this. A lot of you guys have... Dawn is very elusive. She's kind of like Wilson on that Tim Allen show. You only get to see very, very quick. You got to be fast to catch Dawn. So the only place I always tell people you're going to actually get to meet her is if you come to the MPG, and that is a huge bonus. So now we've got a lot of demonstrators. We've got a great vendor room, and we pride ourselves on both because we feel as if our vendor room is very diverse, and we try to cover just about everything that you need in the world of pen making or wood turning. And so we want to give our vendors, our attendees, the best show possible. And so we always try to choose the vendors that we know are going to do that for us, and our demonstrators as well.
Well, is everybody from Schaumburg or Hoffman Estates? It's far enough away from Chicago that you're safe.
Yeah. Well, and we can't afford something in downtown Chicago, so the venues get a little expensive. And unfortunately, we would love to grow the show larger and bring in more vendors and more demonstrators, but there is a financial side to it, and unfortunately, in Illinois, nothing's cheap, so it's hard to get larger.
And the big thing is we target the $59 range for the price. I think it's the best value in any kind of turning symposium you'll ever find.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So with that, we're at 8:30. I think we should certainly say thank you to John.
I
As
appreciate it.
usual, he's really fun to listen to, and I learned things, which is amazing after as long as I've been doing this. But thanks to John and to Dean always, and of course Mark for being with us.
That other guy.
Yeah, that guy, the guy in the corner.
No, I appreciate everybody coming out. Again, I tried to give you as much information as I could in a little bit of time. I mean, let's face it, we can turn casting into a week-long class. So,
And yes, he will do it twice at MPG. So if you want to see more, here's your opportunity to go to the MPG.
Well, and
we'll
anybody in the Nashville area, you'll be down there in August.
yep, in August, well, and that's up to Powermatic. But Mark and I will be teaching a class in August for Powermatic, Jet Powermatic, and looking forward to that as well. So I don't know how much of that's been advertised, but yeah, anyone in that area, maybe they can stop in as well.
So
as
somebody
usual,
asked
we'll
on the.
stay here.
So-
We're not leaving, but basically we'll say good night to everybody, but we'll still be here to talk to anybody that wants to talk. Go ahead,
Dean.
Yep. Somebody asked what specials are out there available tonight. Dawn has added a variety of things to the sale page. I put the link out there. I do see that John's racks are on sale. The casting system's on sale. A few pigments are on sale. So there looks like there's a bunch of things on sale in the casting space for those of you that do want to do some casting. So I see some dyes, but like that's the big ones. Go check the site out, and that's what she's got out there for sale stuff for tonight from the video as well.
Well, we appreciate all you guys joining in. I know there's a handful that we see every month, and it's great to see us. I know Kent Fleming is on his way home tonight with the family. So, Kent, if you're listening, safe travels to all you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
We're available to go to Toronto anytime someone wants to have us come up to Toronto.
Oh, that would be fun. Well, and the best thing of all, you guys can replay this video as much as you need. And again, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all of us are readily available, accessible. So, except Matt, I know Mark stays pretty busy. He don't talk to us much, but other than that.
Yep. For those who asked, the video is available right.
I'm being wrecked.
Go ahead, Dean.
Sorry, Dean.
The video is available right on the same link as they came to get it. It's as soon as we're done, it'll be ready to replay right away.
That's a good thing, because the question about how do you do the cherry pits, if you go back to earlier in it, you'll see it done step by step, and I think that probably would have been,
Oh yeah, for measuring.
is the right answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to do it twice. So,
I mean,
yeah,
I
go
keep
back.
I keep it simple.
Yeah, I think that was keep it simple. No, really.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, there's all sorts of math involved out there. If you guys want to do it, I just keep it simple.
Yep.
So, it's worked this far.
Other questions or comments that you'd like to know before we go?
Don thinks you should tell the salt and pepper flakes story, Ed.
The salt and pepper flakes story? Oh, well, talking about casting, and that's probably what she's referring to.
I should go grab it.
When we
I have a pepper flake.
When we started doing this 1,000 years ago, it was actually around 2009. We were casting. She was casting everything we could find. Well, one particular weekend, she took every spice out of the spice cabinet. Admittedly, they were pretty old, and cast everyone in there. And then I was supposed to turn it. Well, of course, at that time, we won't. She doesn't want to hear about this part of it, but she was using the instructions, 7 drops per ounce. And so what I was casting was what I was turning was essentially glass with stuff in it. But I was successful at many of them. One of the ones that we were successful with was salt. And we found out that if you put Ca on salt, it's not a very good idea.
Oh, jeez.
So, if you're ever into the concept of how to do all kinds of casting of spices, have a good time. Most of them have no problems at all. Be very careful with salt.
Well, with that, I will add, if you're going to cast the red pepper
Oh, yeah,
the
those
pepper seeds like you get at some of the pizza
Make
joints.
sure you have your glasses on.
What I would recommend is glue 'em to the tube and clear cast it. Because when you sand that blank, you might as well just take a shot of pepper spray to the face.
Yeah.
It's the same equivalent.
Yep.
So
Yep.
take it from a guy who's been pepper sprayed. It's the same thing. It's not good. So
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with a lot of stuff, but at that time, and there were no resources, so
absolutely.
we had no idea that 7 was wrong. 7 drops in the thing. Of course, that's what it says on the bottle. What's the problem?
Yeah.
So
Well,
Well, I think there were some original blanks that people were casting, and that you were told. I remember going to some of the original MPGs, right? And you were told use a furniture file and actually
sand 'em
file
around.
it down,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so because that's going to knock off the turning part of it,
Mhm.
because you're going to be sharpening your tools, and you would literally get those cabinet files or what the file, and you'd be filing the pen blank down.
Why was I pepper sprayed?
you don't realize
Yeah.
what his prior work.
So prior to a full-time resin caster, I was a deputy sheriff. And one night, my partner and I were in the middle of arresting somebody who was under the influence of methamphetamines. And so my partner thought it was a good idea to pepper spray him about the same time I grabbed him. And the pepper spray got me and not the guy that we were wrestling. So it was quite an interesting night.
Are you like Leslie Nielsen or?
The stories I could write you wouldn't believe. Yeah. My sergeant told me years ago, get a notepad and write everything down. You'll write a book someday. No one will believe it. And he was right. I should have.
I have some very old Dawn blanks around. I actually have a few that I've never turned. I have no idea what this one is. It looks like some sort of Easter grass. I should go like this.
Oh, yeah.
Have one of those red pepper blanks.
Oh, boy.
That one, I have it because I will not turn
You
it.
should turn it.
No. I think she gave it to me as a bet, as much as anything else. Say, hey, go turn this. I took one look at it after I got it. Went, no.
Jaime, I look forward to hearing the story.
Well, he could tell you the story at the
At
Midwest Pen Turners
at the
Gathering in
MPG.
April.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually have some of Dawn's blanks also. I probably have a small, a medium flat rate box that I've hoarded over the years of Dawn blanks.
I've turned to some that I wish I hadn't now. That there's some old Dawn blanks, some of those metallics and everything else that are just so amazingly beautiful that I wish I had waited till I was a better turner to turn some of them.
I agree, and I wish I'd have chose better pens to put them on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's why. Because
Well-
now that I'm a better turner, you put it on a much more expensive pen.
Back then, it was just slim lines, and then when the cigar pen came out, everybody was like, "Oh my God, look at how cool this thing is!"
Yeah.
I remember the original Euro style was the Mont Blanc,
Yep.
Yeah.
literally called the Mont Blanc. Literally
It
called the
didn't
Mont
last.
Blanc.
Yeah, that name didn't last long,
No.
did it? No.
Mont Blanc took exception to that.
Yeah.
They didn't think that was a good idea at all.
Yeah. I still like that pen style though.
It is.
I think it looks
It's
very.
The only thing I don't like is having to do that extra little cut on it. But
I'm not a
it's-
cross refill fan.
Yeah.
I wish that. I think there's an 8mm that takes a Parker,
Yeah, there is.
and I'm pretty sure I made a few of them, but most of what I had were the 7mm. But
Well, and that one I think was the one that had a true tenon.
yes,
Everybody complains about it because the existing one you have to turn down to the brass tube.
right. And
That
then
is
press
not
it.
a tenon.
No.
And that
Oh,
this
that was the
had
one
a
I was
true
talking about
tenon.
when you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
true
The other
tenon
one was
on
a
it.
true tenon that you had to slide, just
And-
shave it down and slide it on.
And
You had
was
that-
an
you
8
had that-
millimeter.
That
Yes.
Yeah.
you had that bushing that had that little sleeve on
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
and you would turn it
Yep.
down to
Yep.
the outer sleeve, then push the sleeve back, turn it down, slide the sleeve back over.
Yep. I still have that.
I have that. I like
It's
that
a nice pen.
Oh my
It's a very
gosh, is it
nice
a
pen.
nice pen?
Takes a little talent to do it, but it's a nice pen.
I'm way out of practice on
Well,
it. I know that. But
No, and if there's little talent involved, that's me. It takes a little talent. I'll do
you
that.
got that.
Yeah, I can do that. Not a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Just do the little talent.
Nice. Well, yeah. I hope I got everything covered.
I think so. Doesn't seem like any more questions popping up.
Don't
You know, the one thing I'm looking at right now that I didn't discuss that I probably should make note of, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, and that's this blank. As you can see, this was resin with dye and the blank's not stabilized, so the wood actually absorbed some of the dyes. So just be cautious that if you're going to dye your resin, either use stabilized wood or use mica powders with no dye in them. That way, it's not going to bleed into the wood.
I'd be curious to see how that ends up looking turned. That might actually still be cool.
Yeah, it probably will.
I'm just afraid to turn it because then I lose my topic.
Right.
It's a nice prop, but yeah,
This
I've got
color
a-
combination I really like.
yeah. I've done several of those in different colors, and that's fun. But this, I don't think I showed that close up either. And this is white resin.
Oops, hold on. Wait,
Okay.
I switched.
This is white resin with mica powders. So as you can see, there's no shimmer to it. It's just blah. So don't use mica powders in white resin.
Do you remember the old PVC pipe blanks?
Yeah, I still have a few of those too.
Yeah, I have
The
them.
thick water pipes.
Yep, thick water pipes.
Yep.
The pink and the purple.
Yep. And you know the sad thing is, now that I've got props like this, I probably won't even use these, and this can make a really nice
Yes.
blank for something.
Yes.
I love the blue and the pearl in it. I mean, it's not like I couldn't pour another one, but a lot of this ends up in my tote of demo pieces. So,
And somebody else learns how to do it.
well, and the sad thing is, it seems like every time I do something that I really like, I give it away or I sell it. And then I rarely keep things for myself because I can do that again.
Yeah.
And nothing ever looks the same. I go to make something, I'm like, oh, but I like the character in that one better, or this had a little more swirl. I guess that's what keeps me going.
That's what keeps you making
My-
more.
My
Yeah.
problem, and I'm pretty open about it, is the first time I do something, I just want to see if it's going to work, so I don't put as much effort into it. And then when it comes out, you go, God dang, why did I work on it a little bit more effort on it?
Yes.
This would have been something really nice. But I've done that on platters and casting and stuff. I just want to see the technique, thinking
Yep.
the first time I'm going to do it, it's not going to come out. Just learn my lesson.
Yep.
And then it comes out and you go, if I would have spent 2 minutes more just doing this, it would have been something I was really happy about.
Yep. Or like this one. I don't know what I'll do with it, but I love the contrast.
Yeah, that looks cool.
I love the color in this.
Yep.
I mean,
I'll tell you, these came out looking great.
I don't know, I could make a coaster out of it or an inlay for a jar lid or something, but
Very unusual hockey puck.
yeah, knocking around the yard, give it to the neighbor kid, let him hit it.
Yeah, that'll work.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm happy with how this turned out for the demo that it was. Just pouring resin to swirl it around. But
I think those look great.
And not having it under pressure, I'm surprised.
so what's nice about the white resin is you won't visibly see the air bubbles in this until you turn it and sand it,
Okay.
and then you'll see little specks.
Okay.
And then what you have to do is go in there and clean them all, and then fill them with CA
Yeah.
because it wasn't under pressure. It's just quicker to put it under pressure, and you don't have to work at any of that. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
84 days to the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering.
Nice.
Oh, that's good. I have to say, I don't know that we have to put as much effort into these anymore. Because we still have like 2/3 of our people watching, and all we're doing is babbling.
yeah, yes. So with the white resin, I could get a darker blue if I add more dye. Absolutely. And again, that's something you'll kind of pick up as you go. If you're going to use white, you'll realize the first few times it's probably a little lighter than what you wanted. But you can also use clear resin and do the same thing. Just add white dye to it and then add your color. A lot of your colors are transparent. There's some brands out there that aren't, but the Alumilite dyes are transparent dyes. So as you cast them, it's more of a transparent tint. But if you add white to it, now you've got a solid opaque color. So that's a lot of times what I'll do. I'll use clear resin, just add white to it first, and then add my color, and I get a solid base. And you've got a lot more time to work with it. So yeah, just think, if you're going with clear slow because you want more working time, doesn't mean you can't work with dyes and get the same blank. You just have to add a lot more white dye to it.
Bear in mind, putting Alumilite white on my to-do list. Bear in mind, you got 2 minutes. It looks real easy when you
Yeah.
watch John do it.
Well, it
But
is.
it's one of those things that after you've been doing it for a certain number of years, it can be made to look very easy.
The
Now,
biggest-
when you try to do it, it isn't going to go quite that way.
The biggest thing I'll tell you is, and John, you hit on it, is I know it seems obvious in the hindsight, is lay the table out and kind of do
Yes.
a dry
Yeah,
run
that's
of
true.
it.
Everything where it's at, go through it mentally. I'm going to use this. I'm going to mix with that. I've
I've
got
done it.
everything I need. And that's where a designated casting area comes in, because if I forgot something, it's right here within arm's reach.
Yeah.
I've got all my dyes on shelves here. I've got all my mica powders here. I've got my molds here. I can grab anything without having to leave the room and wasting all of my working time.
But we were talking about that on the ride out. How many times when you're trying to remember how I did something, instead of kind of remembering it, put it on the table, dry run it.
So yeah, a while back I talked about heating resin. I only warm B. B is always, in your clear resin, B is going to be the thicker resin. So when it comes to, you'll never have to heat white. Don't ever do anything like that, because you barely have enough time to do what you're doing with it. But when it comes to clear resin, if you need to warm one side, only warm side B. And if it's in the middle of summer and you live in Texas or Arizona and your resin is already warm, put the gallon in a refrigerator, preferably when your wife or your husband's not home, whichever one's casting. And that way it brings it down to temperature, gets it cool, and it will prolong your working time a little in a hot environment. Even clear slow seems too fast for me. Well, it can be, Dave. I guess it all depends on what you're pouring and how long you take to mix it. But I'll be honest with you, that's why I mix with a drill, because it really, it gives me twice as much time to color it. And honestly, after I pour them into cups and I add my color, I'll start with the lightest color. Say if I've got yellow, green, and purple, I'll start with yellow and I'll mix it, and I'll go straight into the green and mix it. Then I'll wipe it off, and then I'll go into the purple. I don't always mix the bit off in between colors if I'm using yellow, then orange, then red, because they're just going to drown out them lighter colors when you go into the darker resin. If you think about it kind of in a spectrum, right? It's all these lighter tones disappear into the dark resin. The only thing you don't want to do is, you don't want to put red into blue or vice versa, because then you're going to get purple. You're going to start altering your colors. But I will always put yellow into green, yellow into orange. So
Larry said that the first time he tried 4 colors, 3 came out. Did that ever happen to you at a demo or
wow,
something?
I don't quite remember. 2 years ago at the MPG.
Under
Yeah.
heat lamp.
So 2 years ago at the MPG, I'd filled in for Fred Wisson, who couldn't make it. He had a COVID exposure at the last minute. And Mark called me up on a Wednesday and said, "Hey, Friday, will you do a demo because Fred can't make it?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I threw a bunch of stuff together, carried my resin in. Now it's April. Didn't think it was going to be that warm, but when you pack, 100, 150 people in a room, all of a sudden it gets a little warm. And I'm standing up there talking like I usually do, just going on. And I've got the cup and I'm mixing it and I'm stirring my color in, and all of a sudden I realized that the stick's not stirring as quick as I wanted it to. And at that point in time, it was a learning experience for everybody, because I realized at home in my shop where I cast, I know exactly how much time I have, right? Because it's the same time. It's the same temperature. It's the same everything. But when I'm in somewhere else, I'm in a different venue, I'm in a warm room with a bunch of people, that resin's kicking a lot quicker. So I probably lost 30 seconds out of that pour. But it was a good experience for everybody. The stick, basically, I said, "Yeah, we're not going to pour that." And I picked it up by the stick, and nothing came out. And we moved on, and we did it a second time. And again, it was a great learning experience, because it just reiterates that you have to understand your variables. And
Harold said he would like to meet Fred one day in person. Where might he meet him, John?
Fred will be at the MPG. P-Town Subby's one of our vendors, so Fred and Tina are always there. Good people.
And you'll also
Assuming he
meet
doesn't get COVID.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and
hopefully we're past all that.
Ed and Don will be there, and the president of Easywood Wood Turning Tools, Chris and Christy, will be there. Yes.
Yeah, we have great vendors. We have great people there. So it's always fun, and it's great to just come out and talk to the owners and operators of these businesses and the people that you've been doing business with. It's nice to meet them face to face and put a face to the name, because then,
Well, James Smith was always a fun guy. So,
yeah,
and a resin caster also.
yeah. Well, thank you, Bob. I'm glad somebody else got a kick out of it, because it. I can't say it's the first time that ever happened, right? It happens. So about a month ago, I hadn't cast any color in a while. For me, I get in rhythms, and so I know this week I'm going to work on feathers, and I'm only going to do feathers and get them done. And then the following week I'm going to work on opals. I'm going to get all of those done. Then I might work on something else. And so it came around time to do color cast. It was a time where I was deer hunting, and that was on my mind, not so much a resin casting. So I wasn't thinking, and I walked in the room and I started pouring colors out and mixing. I thought, all right, cool, I'm going to hit 115, and I shot it was 124, and I went, nope. And a blob fell out on the mold, and I picked it up and said, well, I'll let that hard so I can start over. And it happens.
One of the funniest things, and I don't even know I ever told you this story. One of the first MPG where you were doing a casting demo, I went and I got a Lumelite. I was going to make a cast at home. I put the label on the tube, and I just remembered in my head equal amounts. So I poured one in a cup. Then I poured another one in a cup. I looked at it and I went, yeah, that's about right. They look about equal. No measurement, no nothing. Mixed it. Probably didn't even mix it thoroughly. Poured it in. 4 hours later, when I opened it up, it was just this white blob. You couldn't see anything. It was just a brick of white.
Yep. Yeah. Environment has a lot to do with it. Somebody had asked about color. I will say there really isn't an order that I pay attention to. But now we're getting a little deeper into options for coloring, and that might come in hand for something as what they call a flip cup. And a flip cup is just that. You would take your resins. As you get into this, you're going to realize there's all sorts of weird. Now there's the dirty pour, the flip cup, you name it. But what you would do then is you would take your resins and pour one after another into a cup, and then take your mold, put it over it, and lift it and let it go where it goes. And it's kind of cool because it will give you kind of a cosmic look depending on the colors you choose. And in that instant, you might want to pay more attention to the color, the order of the colors, because a lot of times one of them colors is going to disappear more, right? It's going to be pushed out of the way. It's going to be drowned out. But for the most part, I alternate all of my colors. I try to pour each color at least twice, and I've always poured it a different way. That way, I'm getting every color in every spot in that mold. So, yep, Dick Singh should be there this year. He's a great guy. And Dave, I know I think you got to sit and talk to him the last time he was there. And that's the nice thing about the MPG is when the demos aren't going on during lunch, during dinner, or just the evenings, you'll find most of us just hanging out in the lobby because we just all want to sit and talk and share stories and
Till
get
2
to
or
know
3
each
in
other.
the morning.
Yeah, and what's really
Not
tough...
uncommon that we'll be there till 2 or 3 in the morning.
What's really tough is I usually like to have one of the first spots in the morning to get my demo done so that way I can help the rest of the day with running of the event. And it's really tough when I can't get to bed before 2 in the morning and I know I have to do a demo at 8:30. So I always joke and say, catch the first demo the first day because the second day I'm not in my... I might be mentally cloudy. So, yep. Yep, bring your books. I'm sure Dick would love to sign them for you. Yeah, it's a lot like what they do with the acrylic pours. And there's so many ways to pour resin. I always joke about it, but honestly, you can pour resin. You can set a stick over the mold and pour resin back and forth so that it drips off the stick just to add a little more characteristic to the mold. Sometimes I'll lay 2 or 3 up there and pour them. You can pour 2 colors out of 1 cup. You can pour alternating colors. You can lay something over it. You can put your mold at a slant, pour everything at a side wall, and then straighten it out. You can go to Walmart and buy a record player and put your mold on the record player and set it to 78, and as that sucker spinning, start throwing resin at it. And that's a lot of fun too. It's a little messy, but it's a lot of fun. And that way, you don't have to move the pour cup around. The mold's moving. You just spill it. So there's all sorts of things you can do, right? It's fun. I've got more crap in my resin casting room. Someday I'm going to have a bigger building. because I need it to fit all my
Yeah, I
crap.
understand that well.
Yeah,
Look around.
someday. But no, it's a lot of fun. And again, just make sure you keep notes, because about the time you play around with something and then you cut that blank open and realize how cool it is, someone's going to want them and you're going to want to remake them. So take notes. Write down what you did.
I think this one is fantastic. I think it's a great color.
Well, you can watch the video when you decide you
Let's
want to
see
make
how to do
it.
I hear there will be a video about it.
And it's funny, Sarah posted, she goes, I love the one that they poured today. I want to see somebody make a pen out of it so I can see it because the colors are great.
I think I'll just give it to Sarah and she can make a pen out of it.
Yeah.
There you go. Sarah K.
Yep.
Well,
No.
should we call it a night, guys?
I was just going to say, talking about 2 or 3 a.m., you guys still have a drive home.
Yep.
Dean, do you remember when John did the opal? What opal? I don't know. John, do you remember when John did the opal?
I've done a lot of opal.
That's why I'm confused. I don't know.
Is
Bob, you'll have to send a note and explain what you're looking for there. There's been a lot of opal things. Anyhow, yep, agreed. I think we're about ready to hit the closing. I've got 2 of the 3 prizes already on their way out the door to the people, so that's good.
That's a
One more to
good
go.
nice.
Yeah.
Good thing.
And then next one, last Thursday in February. Is that the plan?
It's the 4th Thursday of every month.
Yep.
4th of Thursday. Yeah. And we have the dates. They're in the car.
They're in the
Okay.
car. What are we doing?
It's in the car.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We have a plan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it?
Tips and tricks.
Oh, that would be a good one.
And then the month after that is jewelry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark and I,
Awesome.
we've still got about a 2.5 hour ride now, so
You got to pack
Well,
up too.
yeah,
No-
I'm
not-
throwing all this shit in Ed's corner.
A 2.5 hour ride, not counting the extra 30 minutes to actually get the car warm before you leave.
Yeah, well, and I'll spend 30 minutes just throwing this stuff in boxes, so
It means
Awesome.
all it means is if anybody places an order while John's packing, I will be going and picking orders, and your order will go out tonight.
There you go.
There you go.
well, thanks everybody. Appreciate you stopping in. Thanks for all your comments.
Yes.
Good night, all.
Good
Good
night,
night.
all.